thanks very much for the shot, guys, for setting up all the audio equipment and the projector screens and all the filming at the back there. So this is going to get live streamed, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, cool. So we're going out to the world, so just bear that in mind. Welcome along to a day of alumni talks, basically. So we've got some really interesting speakers for you guys today, and hopefully there's something you can take out of today. I know you're all from sort of the Northwest region, so we're trying to aim this at people who are graduating in the Northwest, looking at early careers and hopefully other stuff that you'll find interesting, and you'll get loads out of today. Just to introduce myself, so I'm Dom, I'm from the Student TV Alumni Network. That's who set this day up today. We're just a collection of people who were once part of NaSTA stations many years ago now, probably too many years ago. But yeah, there's a few of us here today. So we've got Dan at the back and Andrew here as well. We're all part of the Stan committee. The good thing with Stan is that everyone automatically becomes an alumni when you graduate, whether you like it or not. It's not optional. So similar to when you graduate from Salford Uni or Manchester Uni, when you come as part of a student TV station and you graduate, you're automatically part of our network, and that's part of hundreds of thousands of people that all work in the industry, outside the industry, stretching back all the way to the 60s. So you're part of a really cool community, and we like to sort of give back and give our time to help you guys, help the current generation, and hopefully that's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you some knowledge and advice at any stage. If you want to ask a question, or if you've got anything that you want to get out of today, please be as vocal as possible. We're here for you. We're here to help you. So yeah, that's the whole point of today. Just to give you a rundown of what's happening today then. So we've got Alex here and Cameron are going to... it's a good start. Alex and Cameron are going to have a discussion today about getting your first job using your TV skills that you've already got. Then we've got a really cool session that Andrew's running, talking about a sustainable career in the Northwest. After that, we've got Meet Stan, which is going to be the best part of the day because it's involving me and Dan and Andrew. And then finishing off as well, we've got Joe, who I guess you all know, who's going to talk about freelancing and his sort of career journey as well. Throughout the day as well, we've got the CV clinic running. So I don't know if any of you guys use that in Southampton, but if you've got CVs on your phone or your computer, whatever you've got, and you want to show them to us and get some professional advice, we're going to be set up in those rooms out there. So there'll be breaks in between all these talks, and if you want to come and grab us then feel free to do so. But yeah, that's the running of the day. So yeah, please make it your own day. Ask any questions you want to ask and get the most out of today as you can. And then without further ado, then I'll hand over to Cameron and Alex, who's going to give us the first talk.
Cool. Thank you very much, Dom. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to be chatting a bit about how to use the skills that you've already got from student TV to get into industry. So my name is Cameron. I, in a past life, was production director at YSTV, and I'm now the regional development officer for Yorkshire and the North East. And my day job is at ITV in the digital team. And I'm going to be chatting to Alex.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the former station manager of LSTV, currently the secretary of NaSTA at the moment, and I work, ironically, for the BBC. We're very much two different sides of it. So I work on a show called Morning Live. We're based in Manchester, and we do everything from scams to how to cook a jacket potato. So yeah, that's it.
Right, so I wanted to start off talking a bit about your student TV experience, actually. How did you get started, and talk us through your time at LSTV?
So I started in 2019. So I joined University 2019. It seems so long ago now. So I got involved then, and yeah, it was really, really exciting. I mean, we had quite a large and diverse committee there, so it was really, really fun. And I got involved with NaSTA at that point, so I started making the NaSTAs and that kind of stuff. Because it's maybe a slightly different. I think it's always a different process depending on what station you're with. So it's made to be quite a collaborative process where everyone kind of get involved in terms of like projects and stuff. So I helped get involved with some of those, all that kind of stuff. And then COVID hit and ruined everything, which was great. And yeah, then I started to kind of take more opportunities, went on committee, all that kind of stuff. So at that point, I was like the head of tech. So I would help organize some of these live streams in terms of like being completely virtual. So that was quite handy in terms of like managing live streams, all that kind of stuff. And got involved in making some NaSTAs as well myself. And then, yeah, then became station manager for 2 years after that and kind of helped bring back the station after COVID. So we do everything from filmmaking. You know, the Filmmaking Society in Leeds basically shut down over COVID, so we kind of took that over and kind of gave that a home. So we invested a lot of money into that. Live streams, we did a lot of that. You know, we did a lot more collaborations with RSU at that time. And yeah, then, you know, just kind of pushing people to make what they want, really. So that's kind of what got me involved with LSTV in that sense and kind of made me stick around in that sense.
And I know it's a tough question, but can you pick a kind of favourite production from your...
Yeah, because it'll be one of mine.
TV?
It will be one of mine. So when I first joined LSTV, there was this video that was made in like 2017, Gear Knobs. So I was like, I'm going to create the spiritual successor to Gear Knobs, and it was. So we filmed it as lockdown was lifting because it worked because we couldn't really film stuff like in a studio, so we could do it outside, social distance. It worked really well. So it was originally called Gear Knobs 2, and then I had an epiphany for it's simply called Gear Knobs, Gear We Go Again. So that was something we're proud of. That came second, though, under controversial circumstances. That's what I'll say. But that's something I'm really proud of because that was quite early on. We got a lot of people involved in that. It really engaged a lot of people, and it was just it was a learning process for me because so much on the planning side, the editorial side, the post-production side of it, you know, I was kind of messing around with like Google Earth Studio and doing After Effects and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was obviously a really different time because normally your NaSTA submissions kind of happen in February or whatever, whereas this time it was like July. It was a bit of a weird time. So it gave us a bit more time to be creative and try different things. So that's something I feel like taught me a lot, but something I quite enjoyed. I think one, because it was one of my ideas that I had when I started and kind of got to the end of it. I was like, oh, this is great. But I've got quite a few memories from like Varsity to God, I'm trying to think. Well, that sounds really bad because there's been so many of them.
Right. It's so hard to pick.
There was one live stream where we did it from 3 outside locations, and that was fun but terrible at the same time. I wouldn't recommend doing that in the rain. But a lot of them taught you like how to like kind of, I don't want to say push through, but I think the one joy I had in student TV was that you could kind of do what you want in that sense.
Absolutely.
And it's something I don't want to big up Wise TV over here. You do kind of get a freedom that you don't get nowadays, which something I always try and talk about because you can try different things. You know, you don't have to worry about Ofcom. You don't have to worry about getting. I mean, you do have to worry about getting sued. You don't have to worry about doing X, Y, and Z. You do have that freedom. So yeah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that's something I definitely miss now being in the industry. As much as I'm sure we could sit here for a full hour and just
go on.
reminisce about student TV, we want to hear about industry. Yeah. So what have you been up to since you graduated?
So when I was still at uni, to be fair, so when I finished my bachelor, so I did I did a bachelor's in journalism, and then like any normal person was like, because I had COVID, I was like, oh, you know, I don't know what I want to do, all this kind of stuff. So I was a bit like, I still don't know if I want to get into journalism, because I did some political journalism stuff when I was there. Basically, I was one of the bastards behind Politics for All, which was a bit controversial. So that was a bit of a learning process. So I did that for a little while, left after that, all went tits up. And then I was like, I don't know if I still want to do journalism. So I thought, okay, I'll do like a really niche master's. So I did a master's in terrorism, which, you know, makes sense for a media career. So it was between that moment between my bachelor's and thing, one of our old alumni at LSTV spoke to me about working on the Women's Euros because it was in England and all that kind of stuff. So that was my first proper job, I guess. So that was basically driving around to different stadiums in England, capturing digital content, all that kind of stuff. Because they had which sounds really weird, they had a Snapchat daily show, which you think nobody would watch, but actually got quite a lot of viewers. So you know, Snapchat daily show, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, complete social stuff. And yeah, then we kind of went across the UK just covering events from the sideline. So it was, even though it wasn't traditional TV, it was very much similar to student TV in terms of like, you know, we were filming on phones completely. You were just doing stuff where you could, obviously you had to deal with like accreditation, all this kind of stuff. There were certain rules I had to follow and all that kind of stuff. You know, I couldn't just do what I want, but it very much felt that kind of vibe in terms of like, you were kind of grabbing people for Vox Pops and all this outside of stadiums and stuff. It was probably very similar stuff to what I've done in student TV, but just more official and getting paid for it, which is quite nice, really. But yeah, that was my first job I did, and then I did a few freelance gigs after that. I did a show about horse racing called Champions Full Gallop. So that was interesting. And then I worked on The Voice, Comic Relief, and then I started at a company called Whisper. So they make loads and loads of bits and bobs. So I worked with those on the Euros over in London, and then I did Junior Bake Off, and then I'm back where I am now. I'm in Manchester doing Morning Live. So that's kind of like an abridged version of career history. So yeah, kind of touch of digital, but mostly TV stuff.
I'm sure people will be really interested to hear all about how Morning Live gets made. Do you want to tell us about your
God!
current role?
Oh no! I'm quite lucky that I'm off for now because it is relentless. It is such a beast of a show. I don't think. Oh, let's ask. How many people watch Morning Live? Oh, that's one. Thank you. That's going great. Oh, you'd be pleased to know it does get more viewers than our competitors, surprisingly. So yeah. So how it kind of works. I mean. So how it would work in terms of I work in what we call a day team. So often these sort of shows work on day teams, whether it's this morning, Steps Back Lunch, whatever, you work as a day team. So how my day team works is that you've got a producer, AP, assistant producer, researcher, and runner. So we're all across this kind of show. So on a Tuesday the week before, we have a meeting, and it's only then we kind of look at the grid and we go, okay, what are we doing? And at that point, the show can still change because we're looking at what item goes first, what films we're doing, and all this kind of stuff. So that's how we rank it. It's basically a big Excel spreadsheet. And at that point, a week before you make a TV show, you know what you're doing, which may seem quite scary at first because you're sitting there being like, oh my God, but I remember watching TV. I wouldn't know what I'm doing in a live show until the day before. So knowing a week before is great. It's great. And then from that point on, as soon as I'm done with the previous show, so last block, I was on Wednesday. So I'd know what I'm doing the day before, finish up Wednesday, and then we start going at it. So my job normally sees me talk to the celeb interviews and kind of the food items and stuff like that. So I would then start chasing PRs, start chasing the celebs themselves. I start chasing. Often they come with like clips, so we've got to start sourcing the clips and making sure they've all fine copyright wise because they involve music. I've got to go through so many leaps and bounds, and it's basically just kind of craft the time as quickly as we can before. If I was on Wednesday, before Monday, script gets read through, we make the tweaks. Tuesday, we do the last finishing touches. And then by Wednesday at 5 a.m., I've got to be awake, alert, and making this show, basically. So that's the abridged version of it. It's Morning Live's very split into two teams. You've got the films team and the studio team, and then whatever else it is, because it all kind of comes together at the last point. But it's great. I mean, it's a lot of people say it's surprisingly calm for a live show. And it's interesting because I've had shows where it's quite manic in student TV, but I think, and I don't mean to insult anyone from NaSTA TV on this point, I think it's because we rehearse a lot, and also like I think it's different when you do student TV because nobody's always a vision mixer, nobody's always a producer, nobody's always a camera operator. But when you've got professionals in those roles, it makes it a whole lot easier. It's all just based on your ideas. So if I want to do some silly idea, or if we start the show on the balcony, or you know, I mean, we rehearsed for weeks about the Pope's death in case that happened, because it very much happened at one point. And I think got to a point where like we could all recite the Pope's age, where he was born, and everything like that off the top of our heads. Yeah, so that's a very British version of how Morning Live is made, how all that's put together. But I think some people think there's like loads of people behind the scenes or something. It is basically 20, 30 people on the studio team pushing it through, and then we've got a different films team. All that, so it's intense. I love it. It's great. It's intense. I mean, I if anybody knows me too well, I hate waking up early in the mornings. So waking up at 4:30 every week for this thing, I must really enjoy it. But yeah, it's great. And I think it was student TV that made me realise, oh, I like live stuff, and I'm actually somewhat decent at live stuff. Student TV is great to kind of, for me, work out what I really enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy. So yeah.
And can you talk us through some of the like specific skills that you picked up at student TV that you use day to day at work?
Yeah, I think being quite collaborative is quite important, because I'm working like on my own this item, and then I've kind of got to give it to a producer and all this kind of stuff, because I'm working on my own little thing, and then all of a sudden it gets slotted into the show. So that kind of collaboration in terms of like X, Y, oh, this goes here, tweak this, tweak that. We're doing all this kind of looking at the bigger picture while looking at your own item. And also time management. I think time management is a skill that people really forget student TV, because student TV, you're doing this big thing while still having a degree, still having a life, still trying to live, basically. So I think time management is definitely a big one. If you can kind of do student TV and still survive with everything else, then you should be fine. So, I have kind of managed to be able to kind of do these bigger things. Like, we had this comic relief event a few weeks ago, which was interesting. Let's just say that, because we did basically a 24-hour live stream. And it did remind me of student TV in some ways, of like, we are not planned for any of this. And in 5 minutes' time, Bluey's about to come out. So what are we going to do? It was things like that, basically. And being able to manage my time across those two items, basically, and do all of that, and also just live, was really, really important. So I think, time management for me, I think that's one of the most crucial skills this place can teach you. Well, student TV can teach you, because if you can survive doing a degree, if you can survive doing everything else and do student TV, it's quite impressive. Being collaborative, I think just being quite creative. Like with student TV, you don't have much budget. I mean, you don't. You have a hope and a prayer, and that's it. So doing different ways of doing things and kind of pushing you outside that box and making you learn, okay, you could do this, you do that. Because I think sometimes in universities, I mean, I did journalism, it was just news days. It was very, I don't want to say boring. It was just very repetitive and often the same things. You're practicing the same skills. Whereas in student TV, there was one day I'm doing this sort of video, one day I'm doing that. It can teach you to be creative in how you do your treatments, and that really, really helps, because I don't get much budget at work, really. I don't really have much money to play with, so I have to be creative.
Can I get a quick show of hands of you guys? How many of you are graduating this year? Okay.
Oh my God.
So I imagine at the front of your mind is, how do I make that leap from what I'm doing now to that first job? So if you cast your mind back to that first job.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds bad, because obviously it was through it's through my student TV station, so it was kind of like, I don't want to say cheat code, but you do have to hustle in many ways. I mean, I think each university, each station maybe has their own advantages of like what alumni you can touch to, because I think if you reach out to people, they are more than happy to help, and I think that's a big thing. Like, you can just it's the same. I don't know what to say it, because it's always the same classic things, but I think it depends what you want to work in, obviously, and you see who else works in it. You can reach out to them. Most people don't buy it. Like with Morning Live, the film's executive producer, I reached out to them about maybe 5 times, and then I found them an in-person event, questioned them in person, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm a bit terrible at emails," and that gave me a bit of a push to do it. So like, if you do have a goal of working somewhere, I think you can send a message or two. Don't be a stalker. Don't be too insistent. Because I think if you say to someone, "Look, I really want to do this. I really want to do why I'm really passionate," hence how I found you, basically. And I've also done student TV to like prove like I do have a passion for this, or I do have that kind of that urge to do something. I think that helps. I mean, I've kind of reached out to people at the BBC higher ups, and they've, given me some time and some chats and all that kind of stuff. And that wasn't because of student TV. That was just because I found someone's name, I found their email, and was like, actually, I'm going to just reach out to you. So I think that's quite an important thing to do if you want to get those first steps. Because I can talk about TV, but TV's in this really like difficult place where like there's not much headroom. So obviously there's like classic things you can go through. So there's obviously like Channel 4 trainee researcher schemes. There's some apprenticeships at BBC if you want to go into production management routes. But if you are just going to make it out as freelance, it is just basically for finding people, emailing them, and don't like, I don't say harass them. Don't constantly go at them, because that's a bit too much. And it's awkward, because how do you know what a fine limit is? And that's what you probably learn. You probably think, okay, I'll do this here, do this there. So I think that's kind of the first steps you need to do. And also going to events like NaSTA, there's RTS events you can go to. I mean, I remember going to NaSTA 2023 was Salford, not Salford, Ravensbourne. And that's where that's the absolute neek I was, or are. That's where I spotted Chris Cook, and I went, I'm just going to go up to him, chat to him, and that's how we became friends to the point of we went to Eurovision together. So it's things like that helps. You do just kind of like go to these events, make that effort. I think I was chatting to someone who went to an RTS event a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, you're the first person. They just went up to someone, just started interested in them. Don't speak to them in terms of like, I want a job from you. Just try and just speak to them. They're normal people. Don't
Person.
don't just be like, hi, oh my god, you're the CEO, great jobs. Like if you do that, you're not going to get one. But just actually be engaged in what you're doing, because you chat to these people and they just you can kind of stroke their ego a bit if you want, but they just are interested in making their time out to go to a NaSTA or to an RTS. They are interested in meeting people, so meet them, get to know them and all that kind of stuff, and then it may open doors down the road, or it may just take you down paths you didn't even notice. So yeah, to kind of circle back around to what I was going to say, it is difficult. I'm not going to lie. There are some training schemes you can do, all that kind of stuff, but I think you just need to start reaching out to people, contacting people, and your own universities, your own stations may have alumni you can reach out to do those. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can, still find people online, LinkedIn, Talent Manager, and kind of grab their emails and kind of contact them politely through that way.
Mm. I'm curious, what's the best advice you've been given about getting into industry?
Don't. I'm joking. I think it probably was the old emailing people and stuff, because I'll tell a story. So there's this guy I once messaged. His name's Pete Ogden. So his role is executive producer, BBC Studios Entertainment. So before that, he was the guy who ran Saturday Night Takeaway. And I basically guessed his emailed him, as you do, and this was like 8 o'clock on a Thursday. I think I'm not going to get a reply. He replied within 15 minutes. I went, "What are you doing with your time?" And we had a chat and all this kind of stuff. And he to be fair, he it was maybe a 15-minute call we had, so very brief. But he got me comic relief. He circulated my CV around. He had some belief in me, which is really, really nice. Because what I said in the email was, I went, "Look, hi Pete, I'm really interested in what you do. I loved what you do with like, I love Saturday Night Takeaway as a kid. He used to work at This Morning, all that kind of stuff. So I just messaged him like, yeah, whatever. And we keep in contact here and there. I mean, obviously he's basically quite senior in my department within the BBC now. So I've never met him before. He's just this elusive man that I email. But there's a chance that he may just appear at my workplace one day. I'm like, oh my God, it's you. But if it wasn't for that advice, then I don't think I'd be in the same space I am now. So I think that advice of finding people to chat to, reach out to them, in those shows you like, in those productions you like, in those industries or areas that you're quite interested in, that's kind of, I say, pretty key. And that's one advice that really helped me, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have done comic relief, I wouldn't have done that, and then you don't know what other doors just open down the road, basically.
Yeah, I think the thing to emphasize for me is you need one person to say yes.
Yeah. You could fire off 50, 60 emails. If one person says yes, it just has to be the right person. And even in terms of like NaSTA and stuff, because I think the issue I sometimes face is that I like many things, and I still do. I like live, I like sport, I like all this sort of stuff. So I know one day I just went to Dom works at IMG. I was like, "Can I just come and see IMG?" And he went, "Yeah, sure." Like if it wasn't for NaSTA, it wasn't for Stan, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So it's I'm not saying everyone to message and harass Dom, because yeah, it's fine to do that. But it's things like that where, like, if it wasn't for like this and it wasn't for getting involved, I wouldn't, and that's not because of my role in NaSTA, whatever. It's just because I went to Dom and went, "Oh, really interesting, like what you do," and I went around there, and it was, he basically, haven't had a look around, and it was Manchester Derby, so it was really interesting happening. And and it's things like that where you can explore what you like, what you don't like, and all that kind of stuff. So as I say that, when I go, email people if you don't know, there are people around here that can help you and push you in the right way you want to go.
I think the best advice that I've been given came from a NaSTA talk once, actually. It's cliched, but it is make yourself indispensable.
Whose talk was it?
I can't remember. It was a 2023 one.
Oh.
A couple of years ago now. It was make yourself indispensable, which is to say, once you've got that one yes and you're in somewhere, just make it so, start doing stuff for people proactively so that they need you.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of I'll flip the head, in terms of your role, like, so what does your role entail at ITV then? Yeah, now you're in it. What's the host flips? Obviously, your role. What does that entail then?
So I'm on the digital team, which runs all the YouTube and social media channels for all the shows that ITV Studios produces, which is quite a few. We're launching new ones all the time. We just brought in the Graham Norton YouTube channel, River Monsters. And so I'm supporting that team. We have lots of content creators and channel managers, and I'm helping them with a couple of things. One is rights management. So we have this massive archive of 90,000 hours of content dating back literal decades from when TV was regional, because those regions came together to form ITV.
Don't I love that? Have you ever seen Rivals? It's all about regional ITV. It's good.
I haven't actually. I really need to.
A lot of sex, but if you ignore that, if you like regional ITV, it's the best place to watch it.
But yeah, so we have thousands and thousands of titles, and we have YouTube channels that are genre based. So we just have one for nature documentaries or historical documentaries or that sort of thing. And our channel managers will say, "Oh, I would really like this documentary," and then it's my job to kind of go through the process of actually securing that and dealing with all the interesting legal things that get in our way.
I had a whole legal thing over using EastEnders maybe 6-7 weeks ago because it was the 40th anniversary, and you don't. And it's probably the point I was saying about student TV. You don't have to deal with these things. Like I need to phone up somebody to basically beg them to give me something for the copyright. And okay, yeah, in student TV, don't do stuff, but you can use that clip. You can. What's going to happen? You're going to get pulled down from YouTube. So I do miss those days where you can kind of just
get away with things.
Do what you want. So I think for you that's quite interesting because obviously I'm I guess the more. I don't say analog, but the analog end of making stuff still for broadcast and terrestrial, whereas you are repackaging it for like
internet.
the next stage basically.
Yeah, and then I guess the other side of my job is doing data work. So we publish all these things across 60 different YouTube channels, and people inevitably want to understand how well things are doing. Are we on the right course? Should we be doing things differently? And so I will get all sorts of requests for how many views has Love Island had in this country across all channels in the past 3 years? And it's my job to run those numbers, essentially.
It must be pretty interesting seeing some of that data, though. Like,
oh, yeah. It's good.
I mean, you probably can't talk about it, but...
Yeah,
the cameras in the back were like,
Come and chat to me after.
That's really... Yeah, because I guess that's an interesting... Because, like, what degree did you do?
I did a computer science degree, actually, which has come in handy slightly more than I imagined, because some of that, I'm pulling in those numbers from the YouTube API into spreadsheets, and it turns out the easiest way to do that is just to write some code, if you're comfortable with that, which I was not expecting when I applied. I actually applied for it as a content creator job, and then it's morphed a lot over time. But, yeah.
Interesting.
So that was my degree. Spent most of my time doing student TV and got to kind of indulge both of those passions.
And then I guess...
To be fair, I don't think I'd be here without both of those things.
Yeah, because like obviously you've got that kind of... There's definitely that... I do see it a lot more in TV nowadays, that kind of blend between like tech and TV. Because I think when TV's... One thing I've realized about TV is like how expensive it is to make. It is insanely expensive. And like, as I said to you before, like, you kind of make stuff in like student TV in such a low budget, and obviously you've got nice cameras and stuff, but that, and I think in terms of like what you're doing, it's kind of interesting to see how it kind of develops in terms of like, okay, here's obviously a degree that maybe isn't used to making TV stuff, and obviously that having that interest in TV probably set you apart from other candidates, because other candidates may have the obviously computer science degrees, but you saying I did 3 years at student TV, I'm actually interested in stuff I'm doing, must help in that kind of application interview stage.
I think student TV does help because people know that it's practical experience.
Yeah.
And so people know that when I talked about, I've run YouTube channels and I've spent time in YouTube analytics, they know that they can.
It's the YSTV data for all of this.
Well, it was actually the one specific thing that I mentioned at interview that I think did help was that I'd used the YouTube API to build we had a big spreadsheet with every video we'd uploaded on YSTV.
Wow.
And I'd written a little bit of code that would once a day check how many views and likes and comments each video had from the link and update the spreadsheet. And I think that might have solved it.
We had none of that at YSTV. we just I don't think anybody else has anything like that. We just kind of saw what happened and made sure we weren't bombarded with hate comments, basically.
I mean, there was a fair bit of that.
But yeah, I think it's interesting, because obviously we're both working on different various sides of it. But I think it's interesting, because I think just being involved in student TV helps set you apart from doing many things.
I think it does set you apart in that you've made that effort consistently to do something with your time. It shows that you're passionate about making stuff, and yeah, it shows that you care about something beyond your degree.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we've obviously haven't mentioned as well, and this is probably on purpose, is that when we go into these interviews, we don't say, I've won X amount of NaSTAs, because like, I don't think care.
I
It's
don't really
great.
care.
It's great. Like, I'm not saying don't apply for the awards, do. But I think it doesn't matter like how many you win and stuff like that. Like it's just about getting involved. And because if you went into an interview and I've won X many masters, they're gonna go, what's a NaSTA?
Or similarly, they
yeah.
don't know when I say I was production director at YST. They don't know what that means.
Yeah, no.
It sounds quite senior, but they
Yeah.
don't know what that actually
No,
entails.
but then, and this is something where we can both touch upon. You do bump into people who have done student TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I recently had a colleague start on my team who was around at LSTV in
Yep.
Alex's day.
And even at Whisper, I bumped into people. Even at actually at Morning Live, we've got former
That is true.
YSTV people as well. So it's like
Yeah.
you do bump into people. It's quite funny where we go, "Oh, you did that." I went, "Yeah, you once shoved a mic in my face. That's what you did," or something like that. That wasn't you, but it is funny. Like even though we are saying like not everyone does student TV in the industry, you do spot one or two people, and they do quite engage. They do like I don't know what Ryan said to you, but they do. Oh my god, I did student TV and all this kind of stuff, and you can still see those skills kind of like going through and kind of helping, make connections and find jobs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, everyone always says, network, get to know people.
Yeah.
They're the people you'll be working with in industry. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then, actually,
Yeah,
is
it's
the
true.
case.
It's true. So don't piss anyone off. it's the
The industry is big, but also kind of smaller than you might think.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I could tell you some stories, but I can't because there's cameras in the back of the room. But yeah, just use your head. That's what I'm going to say. Use your head. But yeah, no, it's I mean, yeah, I'm sure we both love what we do. We both love what we do, and it was student TV that kind of sparked it. But I think it's definitely interesting because like you've gone the digital route, I've gone the more linear route, but like I'm sure in some ways we could both swap either ends and do analog. Like there's so many interchangeable skills that can happen that I don't think we realise, but it's also doing student TV puts you in good stead because you do have the digital skills, you do have the other skills that it puts you where TV's changing and media's changing so much. It really puts you at that kind of forefront of it.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point to emphasise for people thinking about getting into industry. Your first job does not lock you into doing that one thing forever. There is flexibility and freedom to move about. So don't overthink that first. It doesn't have to be the perfect role right away. I guess
No.
is what I'm getting at.
No, if it was, then I don't know what I'll be doing this right. I'll be stuck. I don't know what time it is because I know it's 2 p.m.
Yeah, if we want to get a quick break in before the next talk, should we take some questions? If
Anyone got
there
any
are
questions? I mean, we're about, so
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Gee. Again, you think it'd be planned a lot more sooner. It wasn't. So it was kept quite quiet from us in terms of what the challenge was going to be, because both Geth and Helen didn't know what was going to happen. I heard some rumours because we did Geth's Keep Dancing about 22 years ago, so that did really well, and I knew it was going to be 24 hours and going to be live. And then I heard talking about studio plans, all this kind of stuff, and then they went down to film a VT, and then it was all kind of revealed to us we're going to do roller skating for 24 hours, which was just what the hell. And it was insane because maybe the day before we announced it, they were doing photo shoots for it, and I'm trying to prepare the show, and I'm walking around, and Geth and Helen just sort of like roller skating past me and saying all these things, and I'm like, I'm trying to work here, or they're trying to like bombard into a meeting and whatever, and we had to kind of like push them away for quite a while because how can you plan a 24-hour event, keep them completely in quiet, and they're in the room next door? So we had like everything was done virtually. The kind of whiteboard we had was kind of covered up, so we had like a whiteboard, and it was divided into 12 cubes. So one side was one bit was another, and it was basically like what we're going to do, rough ideas. It was probably more structured than we wanted at first, and it came to be afterwards because it did kind of have that student TV vibe to it, in terms of like we just pull stuff out the hat. So I mean, from my point of view, it was all kind of hands on deck. So again, maybe a week before, we were like, okay, here's what we're roughly going to do, because things were booked in quite last minute. So like we had, I'm trying to think one thing we had that wasn't confirmed. I think we just had a few people moving about slots. So we had like, we don't know what time like BBC Breakfast was going to get there and all this kind of stuff, because we were trying to work out who was going to be where. So I was working with the producer I normally work with and the AP I normally work with. So it was quite, you already know who you're working with basically. And we were like, okay, we're going to do this. It was more just calling people, making sure they're aware and all this kind of stuff, and going what happens. So I remember being in the studio the day before, they were laying it down, last minute practices, all that kind of stuff. And, it was basically just it was just me calling people. Like, it's bizarre if you look at like who I was calling. It was like calling like the presenters of BBC Breakfast, being like, "Yeah, are you going to be here on time?" All this kind of stuff, because it was a really big issue, but it was all planned in terms of like the editor and stuff, how he wanted to look going through. And Breakfast was meant to come at a certain time, but they had a breaking news story hit them straight away. So Eddie Jordan died, and that kind of threw out. So Mike Bushell was like, "I may be a bit late," and I was like, "Don't do this to me, Mike. Please don't." He came on time, all this kind of stuff. So there were certain things that kind of went all over the place. It did feel very student TV in terms of like, oh, we got this, we got that. I mean, yeah, we're putting these around, doing that. Was it fun? Yeah. I mean, it was exhausting. Great, because we raised, I mean, just over £1 million for charity and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, Gethin and Helen were absolute troopers. And there was one moment that wasn't publicly broadcast. I mean, Helen had a few falls, but Gethin had a few, and there was one point we thought he was going to pull out because he was just in pain. I mean, it was quite funny seeing them because they were in roller skates for 24. Like when we see roller skates, they were in roller skates for 24 hours. They rolled into the bathroom and rolled out. And there was one point at 6 a.m. where Helen accidentally pulled the disabled arm, and we were like, "Is this?" I was like, "Helen, have you fallen over?" She went, "No, no." Okay, good, because at that moment I thought I was going to have to pick Helen scaled up from the floor and kind of like save her. Basically, I didn't know what state I was going to go into. So yeah, it was great fun and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't. I mean, you wouldn't do it every week. You wouldn't do it every week. I wouldn't suggest doing that. It's because you do that on top of your normal show. So as soon as it was done, it was like, okay, great, you've got your show next week. You've got this people. Good luck. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, it was a lot of time, a lot of effort. I mean, I think we all went delusional by the end of it because we're in this old like underground basement studio. But it was so much fun. I think you sometimes think in TV, oh, this was roughly planned maybe like a month in advance. It was literally like the woman like, okay, we're gonna do this, and break. Like if you saw the scripts and the plans, we throw stuff out as it was going on. And I mean, we had an idea at 10 o'clock to the traces in person, and that basically got scrapped instantly because nobody could roller skate. And also, how would you play the traitors in front of everybody? There were things like that that was just not thought through. But yeah, doing the 24 hours thing, it was probably one of the things that pulled me into working there because I knew it was going to happen. And I was like, this sounds like a great thing. And it was amazing. It was great. I just wouldn't do it within the next 6 months. I'll wait until next comic relief and see what happens. But yeah, it was so much fun. And the fact that Gethin and Helen were still going at like Friday night, Saturday morning at 1 a.m., I was like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, big props to them. But yeah, that was a long ramble. Sorry.
Cool. Any last questions before we wrap up?
Yeah. God. This isn't my achievement. This is probably it's not an achievement. It's more of a feeling and not something I did. But it made me realise how important the show I work on is. So, because I think when you work on TV, I think I've gotten to the stage now where we are just putting stuff. I don't realise how many people are watching. It sounds really, really pretentious of me. I don't realise it's like. I think because like when you put stuff out on TV, you know nobody's watching it. So I've still got the same philosophy. And then we go, yeah, you got 1 million people watching this. I went, oh, fuck. There was this one story of a woman. So basically, we're coming out the top of the show, whatever, and it's a Monday. And we've got one of our resident doctors, Dr. Zand. And I remember a few weeks ago, they were doing this thing about CPR. And have you ever seen the Twitter account called Daytime Snaps?
Yes.
Where they basically take screenshots of daytime shows and they take the piss. So they actually took a photo of this where they're trying to teach CPR and we also didn't have enough CPR dummies. So I think we took 2 of them from Salford University, funny enough. So I think Gethin was doing CPR on a cushion. So that was the photo. And teaching had CPR. And then so that was maybe a few weeks before. And then we came back to the top of the show, maybe this October now. And we're doing the top of the show, and then they were like, yeah, yeah. And then this plasma comes in, and then this woman comes up, and we start chatting to this woman. She goes, yeah, I was watching your show. And maybe like a week afterwards, I was sitting there at the kitchen table, my husband's there, and in 1 minute, he just keeled over. He just went, and she was like, I was like, I didn't really know what to do, and I just thought I need to do CPR. And she went, if I hadn't watched your show and watched your demonstration and watched what to do, my husband wouldn't be alive, because she could hold on for at least 10 minutes of doing CPR to then wait for like her family to come to then take over, and then the ambulance service to come. I mean, I don't know how the husband's doing now. I don't really know about that, but I think that's one thing for all of us on the show when we realise the kind of impact we can have, because we talk about, for many people, saving money, energy. We talk about how to avoid scams and all this kind of stuff. We don't often hear about what we do on the show, but it's those moments like that on the show, those sort of feelings when you go, what you're doing is worth it. And yeah, so not so much an achievement, but it's definitely that kind of feeling, that maybe that achievement of knowing what I'm doing is worthwhile and stuff and all that kind of stuff. But that was pretty special. That's pretty there.
Amazing. I think that's a great place to leave it, unless there are any final
I was going to say, it ends on
questions.
semi-death. Yeah. That was a bit that. Sorry about that.
Thank you for listening to us ramble.
Yeah, we should launch a
and reminisce
podcast.
about TV. If you want to chat to me the rest, by all means,
go
come
on.
and find us. We'll be around.
Yeah, sweet.
I think we've got a couple of minutes before the next talk.
Yeah, sweet. Nice.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Albury. I'm a development exec and producer. In terms of my connection to NaSTA, I was originally a member of Hull Fire TV over in Hull, and then one of the early members of Fuse TV. So it's really nice to be back in Manchester and kind of seeing some of the members of the current station here. And I'm delighted to be chairing this panel on how do you build a sustainable career in the Northwest, because when I was starting out about 10 years ago, I think there was this real mentality of like, you've got to leave, you've got to go to London. There's no point kind of being in the regions. It's stupid. And one of my favourite sentences I heard recently was somebody going, I don't call it the regions anymore. I'm like, it's everything not London. And I think it's a really nice representation of how the industry has now shifted away and gone, actually, you can build a career. It's not compromising. It's not giving in or saying, I can't make it down there. Going, actually, it's a nicer way of living up here. I think it's, you know, getting a chance to see yourself reflected on screen, telling different kinds of stories and really emphasising things. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our two guests for the day. And I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves in their own words, starting with Joe.
Hello, hello. Brill. Hi, everyone. My name's Joe Morris, but you can call me what I like as long as it's nice. I'm the production coordinator for Screen Manchester. My main remits are nurturing stories in scripted and nurturing people, whether it's via outreach or traineeships. As a freelancer, I'm also a careers manager for Met Film School Manchester. But as a person, I try and incorporate more inclusive and accessible practices into the development and production process. But I've also helped people develop their stories, whether it's a film, TV, play, podcast, anything to do with the written word, as well as like helping get people onto sort of craft roles within productions. That's my remit. With Screen Manchester, especially going from what Andrew's saying, we are a part of what we call a cluster. So we're a part of 4 film offices. So Screen Manchester is one of them. Liverpool Film Office, Screen Yorkshire, and North East Screen in Newcastle. And as Andrew said, there are 4 spaces that are under a Screen Alliance North to really help talent, regional talent, get opportunities, especially on productions that come and film in those areas, to try and tackle and get more work outside of the M25. And outside of all that, I also an associate for the Royal TV Society Northwest for the past 3 years. I'm going to pass over to us now.
That's quite a lot. I won't be talking for that long. I'm Oz Arshad. I'm a writer director. I hail from the north. I actually used to come to this university many moons ago. But yeah, not actually doing anything that was film related. My journey's been a bit of a journey, a bit of a, I don't know what the word, excursion. And I was originally a teacher for 10 years, high school teacher, and I decided about 8-9 years ago that why don't I try and get rich and become a filmmaker. No, it wasn't with 3 kids as well. So, but yeah, I just thought I want to make the transition into doing something that I love. And as a creative, that was the choice that I made. And in the last 8 years, I've done a whole heap of different things on that journey to pursue towards making a studio feature or a funded feature from a reputable institution, and TV directing as well. I've done shorts. I've been on different schemes. I've shadowed brilliant directors. I'm mentored by brilliant directors. And I am all about the hustle, which you can find out through a podcast that I run called The Director's Take podcast. It's on all available outlets, so do check it out. And we talk about everything from writing, directing, yes, but specifically this, which is about hustling and getting the pathway. How do you get yourself out there? What do you do? Because I was on House of the Dragon for a year and a half on a mentorship scheme with HBO. And one of the things when myself and my co-mentee, I've actually talked longer than you now, I said that I wasn't, but my co-mentee, when we finished, we wanted to carry on talking about, basically we just wanted to carry on being nerds and keep that bromance going. So we thought, let's do it in the capacity of a podcast so that we can keep checking in and just learning and absorbing from other creative processes. So, yeah.
And one of the things that I love about both of you is just how active you've been. Like, not just in terms of like you're building careers up here, but you've also like the fact you're willing to engage with so many people and you're willing to help. And I think that's been one of the wonderful things about the Northwest over the past few years, is that sometimes people say, oh, you know, when I've made it at the top, that's when I'll fix things. And actually, I think there's a lot of people who are going, we'll start the journey now and we'll start reaching out, we'll start building a community. And I think, obviously, I want to kind of open the floor up to yourselves as students to ask lots of questions as we go. But one of my kind of early questions is, when we say building a community, where do you start with that? What's kind of the first way in?
I think I think what really helps is there we are. I think what really helps is the fact that you're all here. Your peers is where you start, and the fact you've building that over the past 3 years is brilliant because you continue with that. Like from a university perspective, I went to Edge Hill about 10 years ago. That uni family I still have still remains. They're in industry. I've been on jobs with people I've been to uni with. And from the professional sense of you're going to networking events together, whether it's Royal TV Society, whether it's NaSTA events, whether it's going to organisations and just looking at community events that are creative, that get advertised, that are based in the Northwest or that are having a visit in the Northwest, get yourself over there. Because I think what panel one brilliantly picked up on is it's building the momentum with people, not asking them for work straight away, getting your face in front of them and actually being the person that they might want to employ later down the line. And the fact that you can go to your friends and who are in the same position and be like going, right, we're struggling to get work, we're struggling to find work. Oh, this, you want to do this sort of work, let me recommend you. That's how you build up your people and just keep maintaining it. It's all about maintaining it. It's no different if you're going to the gym or disciplined eating or you're trying to keep something up. You just start and you keep going to it. You keep them on your radar. You follow them on your socials. You see them pop up and you go, right, I'm going to go there. I'm going to find time to make that. Because we've got so many hours in the day, even though we've got to work and obviously still want to live our life, which we can do, you can still just find a little bit of time you can block out, go, right, I'm going to dedicate this to outside of my remit, whether it's industry or not, to go, right, I'm going to use this to help elevate myself as an industry professional. And like you say, you just keep going at that. When I started going to sort of the events via the RTS Northwest or going to like social enterprises that help look out for new talent such as Sharp Futures. Now we've got the film offices, which is brilliant, that also do that as well. I've gone from meeting people that I started in the industry with 8 years ago to go, look where we are, look, I'm so proud of you. Like when we catch up at these sort of events, whether they're Creative England, just keep looking out for the signposts where it's people's meetup, because it's not just early talent that go, it's everyone up as well, because people want to maintain the community element, but also if you hire up, they want to either look for people that's above them or below them to still keep in touch with and meet. And yeah, I think it's like you say, just keep building that momentum.
Great. I think it would be. I would like to find out what everyone's doing. Like, what is it you want to go into, or what is it that you're doing? You might not have the full answer now, but we start here. Cool. Cool. I haven't. Oh, are you?
I'm in editorial, so yeah.
Great. Bro. Great.
I'm still working it out. Journalism hasn't happened done. Trying to see what the next step will be. Don't know. I think I'd love to get more sort of like and stuff, but again, so got a journalistic background, so kind of like a
Great. Thanks for that. I just thought it'd be just good to know who we're talking to and what kind of direction you want to go in. So to come back to your question, which was network, wasn't it? How do you build your network? Yeah, a lot of this industry, in fact, not a lot of it, all of it works on who you know. Not in a case of, who you know who's powerful. Obviously, there is that, but there is a two-tier thing to it. And what I mean by that is not in a two-tier policing sense. I mean in the sense of there's above the line and then there's below the line, and your network can be determined by what you want to specialize in, whether it's above the line or below the line. Above the line meaning you're somebody who's going to be in control of taking the IP from its inception all the way through to delivering it to whoever it is, whether it's broadcast or whether it's a studio. So above the line would be exec producers, writers, directors, and then below the line would be everyone else who would be in charge of that specific role and then going from job to job. I think that's the right definition, isn't it? Almost.
Below the line, I would say, is cast, it's crew, it's everyone who's involved in bringing the film to life, a TV show to life.
So recently, I was on a show that I did some directing on, and a lot of the production coordinators and people that worked in production, they went from kind of job to job, and they went with the same people. They were on Inside Number 9 before the job that I was on, and then a lot of that team came across, and it's same with crew as well. When I was in House of the Dragon, most of the crew, the technical crew, had just come off Batman, the Matt Reeves one, and so when we arrived, they were talking a lot about, oh, we just done Batman. I was like, wow, this is insane. But again, it's because of they built that kind of relationship, and that's how you know. And then it becomes about sort of like penetrating that inner circle of people that you know, and that is, we are in a social industry, So it definitely is about keeping up, like what Joe was saying, about keeping up your contacts with people and going to see them. If you hear that they're going out or whatever, after an event, if you can go, so you can just hang out and speak to people. Because if you stay in people's like consciousness, then they'll remember you when they need someone. And if you are someone who's giving like good vibes, good relationship, you're not someone who's going to be difficult or someone who can, mess something up for someone, then that's problematic, because everybody is so scared of not delivering for whoever it is that's above them, and everybody just wants to work and just everyone just wants to get by and have fun while they're doing it.
Thank you, Oz. I think just brilliantly off the back of that, because there's the version where you go, right, if they're just hiring the same people, where's my opportunity? That does change over time, but also as well, the rightfulness nature of that is to go, they are really community orientated people, but also when you get people, depending on what they're doing and where in, let's say in the networking spaces, you've also got people that go to them because if they do say yes, like we were talking before about if they want to meet up with you for coffee or have a chat just to give you advice, I think if you approach an industry professionals or a company or that sort of thing, look if they are a part of, when you see the schemes advertised, see which companies do that, because it's all good approaching people that you might want to work with and get taught by. And I do really encourage, like, even just thinking about, don't just look for connections, don't just look for jobs, look for people you might want to be mentored by, because people only grow the best way because they're taught by people that actually want to teach. And I think I don't mean in a sort of conventional class sense. It's like when you have traineeships, like for example, Screen Manchester have traineeships on Waterloo Road, and they've had, I think in the space of 3 years, they've had like 30 trainees on in different cohorts. But the reason that works is because they got paired with people that wanted to help new talent come through. And I think when you are looking for people to sort of like help build a career, look for people and creatives that you see either on LinkedIn or on social spheres that really have an engagement and interaction with working with young talent, because that's when you know you're going to get the pastoral, because it's well at the same time, you know you're going to get the skills, but you also know that you're going to get looked after properly, because if you get paired with the wrong person, that you feel like, oh, they've done something that I've really enjoyed them working on. But if they're not a pleasant person, you're going to end up burnt. Whereas actually, realistically, you want to get paired with someone that's going to help nurture you, have time for when you make your mistakes, when you want to learn. I think that's just something that I learned later down the line that I think was really key to sort of like when you're helping your own growth and sort of like getting early stage work in the streets, like looking at people that clearly evidence that they want to give their time to help people out.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that, I mean, I assume everyone hates the word networking and always feels really uncomfortable about it. I'm part of that crowd. I think the problem you get into is it can feel quite transactional, and it feels like, oh, I'm just asking for work, or even if I'm not asking for work, I'm kind of asking for work in a roundabout way. And I think it's like what you're both saying, it's like turn up and just talk to people and kind of network sideways. It's not always about who's hiring above, because one of the really sort of strange things and wonderful things you see happen is like when you kind of start off, you go, oh, well, we're all the runners. And it's like, yep, and in a couple of years you'll all be the production coordinators, and a few like years after that you'll all be the production managers, and like you move up together as a group. And I think sometimes people kind of see them come into the room like, I need to talk to the director, I need to talk to the exec producer, they're the only person who matters. And it's just the wrong way of approaching it. And it's like, if you're somebody people want to be around, then that can be great. And like, I was fucking horrific. Sorry for swearing on the live stream, but like, I was awful at networking. I just couldn't do it when I was like starting out. And I think one of the great things for me was like, that's kind of just as socials was starting to become a bigger thing, and you can get a sense of who people are across the social platforms. And I think rather than just being that person who's like, oh, cool, Oz's, just mention, put a picture on, you got a job. Like, you don't have to kind of do that relationship. But, like, see what they're talking about. See, like, what shows they're watching, what films they're watching. You can almost, like, start a conversation with these people where you go, well, I can never get in the room with you because you're off doing whatever, Batman or whatever film. But I can kind of put a thoughtful comment about something you've maybe mentioned recently and be genuine with that. But you're building a relationship up that way, and it's like a genuine thing. Like, I've had so many instructions and opportunities come from having that presence, engaging with people. I think all of us have, and it's just been, like, we all got to this industry because we love it, right? We love watching film, we love watching TV, we love radio, we love storytelling. And I think being able to share that passion of what kind of shines through and like, actually still enjoy it.
I hate to say it because it sounds really egotistical, but I think looking back, people liked working with me because they liked working with me before I was actually good at why I was working in that job role. And I think I can definitely think of occasions that I won't bring up, but it was definitely like the cat that gave me 9 lives. And I think you should just go into a job and be pleasant, roll your sleeves up and want to hard work regardless, because that's how we should be as people. And I think when I look at people now, I'd rather, if you gave me 2 people and one in terms of development needed more help, but was really nice and was willing to do what they were coming to do, instead of someone who was probably could do it, but was more entitled or had more or less attractive personality traits, I'd go for person number 1 because you could see their development and go, right, they really want to be here. And I think that's such a really appealing thing to have, as especially look at someone wanting to get out, is go like, right, you want to be sold on the person first. Sold's the wrong word. You want to be really impressed by the person first, get them into the space, and then they can be impressed and learn and grow on the actual remit that they get given. And I think, like you say, we're all people first before we are industry professionals. And I think quickly what Andrew was saying about keeping on tabs with everything, can't say much from a production standpoint, but I'll say a production different thing, for example, but for journalism, as you know, keep up to date with your stories. If you've got a journalist for a channel that's done a story, compliment and also comment on the stories that they've worked on. It's no different if you've, like you say before, about someone produced a scheme of work, you comment about that scheme of work. And I think it's very important to, like you say, you're keeping contemporary. It's always good to look at things of history and where we've come from, but it always, like, from a scripted back front, like I say, like, I'm a massive comedy fan. If someone turned around and said to me, well, what comedy do you like? And I go, right, thanks for coming out the door. It's just that sort of thing. So I think from an editorial standpoint, keeping up to date and the momentum and building up, sort of keeping up with what's coming out there and sort of keep watching everything in terms of the stories, that's a really appealing trait to have when you go for, like, looking for journalism jobs. And I think from the production standpoint, what I'd say is look at people in production, connect with them, but also ask what skills and elements that they do in their job and sort of outline their job, because then you go, well, I do a lot of coordination, a lot of timekeeping, that sort of thing, because then you can actually realise the skills you've got. Because people, when you start out, you go, well, I've got nothing. Well, actually, if you dissect it properly, dissect your everyday, dissect what you've done at uni, dissect what you've done outside experience so far, break it down and why, you actually realise you've got a lot to start off with. And then when it comes to talking about yourself going for job roles with industry professionals, you realise you've actually got more in your arsenal, but without feeling like that you've actually not got a professional credit on your name just yet. That's when I find really beneficial, when I've got young people talking to me about how to really sort of project themselves, like in terms of getting that first opportunity. Really look at what you've got so far, and then that you actually feel like such a great mental satisfaction for it. The 2 greatest things I felt about my career is when I was looking for other work, because I had to update my CV, I had to remind myself what I do. and a very depressing 4:30 became a very happy 5:30 when I had updated everything and realised everything that I'd got in myself. And I think, like I say, it's just a massive satisfaction thing of realising what you've got as a person and realising what you can offer to someone is such a really satisfying feeling. So yeah, I think to all you here, if you just sort of outline what you've got and what you do in your everyday, that will put you on a great stead foot to actually go and find other work.
I think everything was answered on that.
I mean, I think just touching briefly on one of the things you mentioned, Joe, about like, oh, people make mistakes. That fear of it, like, if you're around the right people who want to teach you, they know you're going to make mistakes. They might not know what the mistake you're going to make is, but like, they're not looking at it going, oh Christ, why did I pick this person? They know it's going to happen. They know it's part of teaching. Like, everyone in the industry has fucked up at least once. Like, you can't be in this industry and not have done it. And I think it's that thing of saying, like, where do you take the line from that? Like, is it something you learn from it? How do you adapt to it? Like, I always remember, like, Jaws, when, like, they put the shark in the ocean, and they went, oh, it's sunk. And it's like, yeah, if you put, like, a 1.5-ton steel frame shark in the ocean, it might well do that. And you go, that's why you kind of have the opening scene of the camera's point of view. It was never the plan. They sunk the shark, and they're like, we can't afford a second one. What do we do now? And it's kind of just adapting to that, and maybe after you've heard this, not putting steel frames into the ocean might be a good way to go. But like, everyone's done it. I think it's working with those parameters, and that's part of the fun about a job, right? It's not formulaic. It's not like you can turn up every day and go, every day is the exact same. Like, we all kind of love the chaos a little bit, and we love the fact you get to reinvent it and try new things, engage with things in a new way. That's kind of the beauty of what we're doing. I mean, does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask?
I'm just glad someone's asked that, actually. Thanks, Oz. I think not massive, but thankfully I was the only one around to realise it. But it was ironically, I was thinking about this because the picture that they use for socials, I was working on a job called the Yorkshire Railway. It's thankfully been a few years, so they can't do anything about it now. But basically, I was catching GVs, and it was basically just like being on a railway bridge and watching steam trains go through. And it was a really windy day. And I was there on my own carrying this. And bear in mind, the bridge, there was no like direct access to it. You had to go all around the houses through the hills. It took like 45 minutes on foot, the only access to get to. Just me, big camera, then tripod. Bear in mind, I'm not a camera person. I shouldn't have been on the job really, but anyway. And then I also had like a little camera on a sort of like, you know, the little bendy tripod you can get, put the GoPros on. So I was like, right, put camera one side, put the camera with the little GoPro on the bridge. One gust of wind, both end up on the track. And I'm like, okay, right. And thankfully, there was no trains there, but I literally had to go and jump because one was on the track, but one was like in the, like, so the big one was on the track and the little one was in like a massive thorn bush. So basically, I had to frog splash in the thorn bush to get it out and then go on the track to get it back. But thankfully, no trains came. But yeah, so that is probably my funniest fuck up.
I don't think I've necessarily had one where it's been production related. Mine's more been a creative thing and probably down to inexperience as well, where on something that I might have worked on, I might have miscast someone and that was problematic. And it still annoys me to this day. So yeah, that was more down to inexperience. But I wanted to circle back to, because I just remembered when we were talking about mentorship. So I've got two things to say about that. No matter what it is that any of you want to go into, or you're pursuing, or you're thinking about going into, do make sure that you actually are the best that you can be at that thing, because all of this other stuff aside, you've got to actually be able to do the thing that you want to do, whether it's ADing or whether it's like your production coordinator, I think you were saying, or working production, or if you're writing or directing or creating whatever, you've got to be good at it, and you've got to be obsessive to some degree about what it is that you want to do. Because yes, all this other stuff is what's going to get you in and get you from job to job. That's that side of it. But you've got to actually be able to do the thing that you're getting hired for as well. And one of the things about getting a mentor is that's advantageous is, and you don't have to have one mentor. You can outgrow mentors. Like, you know, the people that originally used to mentor me, they now come to me for advice. But that's just how it is. That's just how it works. And like, I'm meeting someone that I mentor tomorrow, and she just wants to touch base with me just to tell me what she's been doing, like, creatively and whatnot, and probably going to ask me some questions. And she actually works in the BBC. And I'm like, what are you asking me for? But it's that thing of, you might have something that you want from a mentor that you're not going to be able to get in other places. So it's really important that you kind of like self-check where you are now, and then think about, what am I going to get from this mentor? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be career. It might just be in personal skills. It might be just leadership. You know, these are quite difficult things that you only learn through life and life experience, like how to talk to people, how to actually be emotionally intelligent, how to actually understand and be considerate about, you know, how other people are. Because these are the things that all sort of like feed into, is someone going to recommend you for something else? Is someone going to say, oh, that person's all right? Because this industry is so small, it's unbelievable. Honestly, it's so small, it's unbelievable. And I'm not saying that, you know, like we're talking about mistakes that you can make, it can happen. It's also about what the fallout of that is. Yeah, I might have made mistakes on stuff that I've done, but I will always put my hand up and say, you know what, that's my fault. I've made an error there, and I'm fine with that. I'm confident in myself to do that. And people probably appreciate honesty as well.
Yeah, I think accountability, and I think just like, yeah, you say, even though it might feel scary, just going, right, hold my hands up, this is a mistake, but let's get a resolution. The fact that people go, right, they'll only remember the mistake if it's not resolved. If you came to a resolution, they'll go, right, you go from being someone that made a mistake to being human, which we all are, who solved the problem. And I think, like you say, if you do muck up, which we all do all the time, just figure out how, especially with people around you, figure out how you're just going to get back on track. And I think going back onto the mentoring, so I'm actually seeking mentorship, and I think mentorship isn't just an early stage career thing. Like you say, it doesn't end, like, in terms of looking for help. It's like a human life thing. There's no cut off point where we should ask for help. But some really useful pointers that I do when I approach people were, I wrote down my short term goals, I wrote down my mid term, and I wrote down my long term, but also which is like my dream. I'll just say my dream. So my dream is to produce a comedy one day, which allows traineeships to go on and have opportunity. So that's my dream. So I wrote that and then journeyed backwards to where I am now. And then I also wrote, what am I doing now proactively? And then I also wrote, what do I feel like I need help with that I can't achieve by myself? But then also at the end, I just go, right, this is why I approach you as an individual. And I think if you cover all those bases, it sounds quite a lot. And on paper it was, but I kept it concise and just being like, bum, 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 for lack of a better term. And that really helped me get responses back. And I think, like you say, when you write it down, it's a bit like when I was talking about with the CV experience up to date, and it's knowing yourself better. And I think knowing yourself better and keeping up the communication, those are the steps that help you in the working environment, but also help you have a trajectory where you're wanting to go in your career. But also, as you said before, not knowing what you want to do is completely fine. I think what's good is about that, if you don't have an idea of one thing you want to do, have an idea of a couple of things. That's perfectly fine, and that's just as important. Knowing yourself better, I think, as well, will help you as an industry professional. Also know what to go for and also what not to go for. That's a massive thing as well.
I actually think that ties quite nicely into my biggest fuck up, which is as a producer. I feel like when I was starting out, I went through like what I call the Pokemon phase, where I was like trying to catch every idea and every opportunity. And I was like, oh, if I say no to this, that'll be the thing that does amazing things. And it's like, actually, I'm not the right creative to be involved in all of those ideas. Like, for me, it's like, if I don't respond to the story, and I'm kind of working in a drama and a script comedy background, I'm like, I'm not the right person just to tell it because I don't care enough. Like, I want to be just as excited in 20 years about this idea and the story I've told, and kind of learning to step back sometimes is quite tricky, because I think you almost go, oh, but if I say no to this, maybe that's the thing that leads to something better. And I'm like, yeah, but am I going to bring like the right attention? Am I going to care about it enough? Am I actually going to be able to deliver on what I'm promising I'll do in this role? Like, no one will ever hire me to do camera. It's like fucking awful at it. Like, it will never be in focus. It will never catch the moment it's meant to be. But I know I can do the development and the production side, and I'm like, do you know what? I just have to push on and double down on that. I
I was going to say that the other thing as well is to just in terms of practical advice, have a look at if it's accounts of people who put out like schemes or whatever, or things or opportunities do that. Like Andrew's got quite a sizable following on X, and a lot of people would go to Andrew's account because you'd sort of amplify and repost different kind of schemes or whatever that were going on, but also not just that, but resources and things like that he'd put on. And before we met, I used to follow him because I'm not on X anymore. But when I used to follow him, and there was a really good bundle of resources you'd put online a few years ago that I downloaded, and I benefited a lot from them. So follow people that are outputting things that are for what you want to do, and also for those of you that want to go into production or whatever, there's different ways of doing it. Obviously, there's a TV, which is the more formal and getting into that, but there's also a really big short film circuit as well, where you can work on there and you can pick up skills. It's a bit different because sometimes it's a bit scrappy. It's different, you know. It might not be as formal. Well, it will not be as formal depending on who it is as when you're working on TV or anything like that. So try and get into those places where there are short filmmakers. Try and see directors or whatever, and if they remember you, and you know you've done something, they will call you. Oh, you know, you want to do AD or production design, whatever. Said you fancy coming on even as an assistant or whatever, and any sort of like graduates from here as well, like to there, like if they're doing anything, just reach out to them and say, have you got anything coming up? I'd like to come on, because they might have an experienced person that you can learn off on there as well.
Rarely is it like a crew that everyone is new on the short. Like you'll find there's a huge amount of industry people involved in the shorts. And like, you know, if you're saying I want to be an AD, you don't know if the first AD is working in the industry, right? They might be a third AD in film or TV, and they've kind of used the short to step up to person. But they're going to think, do you know, I need a production runner on that TV show. And like, if you've had that relationship and you've had that connection, it can lead into other things. And I think that's always a really valuable thing. And you know, I mean, you're all involved in student TV. Like, you'll see in 5-10 years, like the people who are making it and are directing shows, producing, and kind of leading on things, will have been sat in these types of rooms now. You know, the same way that the current generation was sat in the room 5 years previously.
My first ever projects, because I used to work for a company called Wrote by the Fiction, and then one of two companies that make Waterloo Road, the school show. And before that, I worked on the editorial team for the Series 11 of Waterloo Road. So then I went from that to that. So I went in-house, and one of the short films project, it was a film called Surprise Baby, which was a comedy by a writer-director, but also in the industry, floor and director's assistant called Zayn Igbe. And I met Zayn because obviously when we're on set, when we're on Waterloo Road show, he was a Screen Manchester trainee as a floor runner. And then he stayed on that, and he showed me a script as a favour. And then when I got into the opportunity to submit it into the company to be on the development slate, we worked together to make that happen. So that was really nice because we started off in a circumstance where we worked in a bigger machine to be able to work on a smaller scale project together. And then obviously we developed the script together and then we got it made. But heads of department on that short film were other trainees and other people that came through Waterloo Road. And obviously we had like the head of costume was Cindy, who was the next cohort as a costume trainee. But because they worked together, especially on the set for 12 hours on a bigger machine and where they studied and learned off each other and built a rapport of each other, we had this really nice then message of working on a smaller scale project together in sort of on roles that took more responsibility on. And I guess, like you say, you'll meet people on bigger jobs that you'll end up working on smaller jobs with at this point, which is brilliant, which I really encourage. And I think also as well, depending what you want to do, what I always encourage, what bigger space can you get into and what bigger project can you be a smaller cog on, without using the clock analogy? What sort of smaller space projects that you might have a bit more ownership on can you do? And sort of what you're doing. So let's say I love to write. I might be working in an editorial job from my 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, but I might be writing my own stuff on the outside. And it's no different if you've got people who are a camera trainee or work in the camera department, but they might be a DOP on a smaller scale project. And I think, like you say, it's great taking the education of somewhere and learning off people to bring it into your own practices. I think that's really, really important.
I think it's the way like everyone grows nice thing about creativity is it's not bound by a hierarchy, and like in many ways it's like a sport or exercise. Like you've actually got to use those creative muscles and skills. It's the only way that you'll kind of grow through them. Are there any more questions?
What do you find the first steps to get into insurance? I know you said that
No, it wasn't. If you listen to the podcast, I talk about it on there in great depth because I'm not going to bore you with it here. But it is a really long story. But the reduced version of it is networking. Is that just staying? Like, for example, right, I didn't mention it earlier, I've just remembered, but I teach directing at Met Film School in Manchester as well. I work with Joe, and that's how I met Andrew as well. And how did I get to that? Obviously, I've got to be able to actually be good at what I'm doing to be able to do that. But after that, the head of the school, who's now the head of the school, she was my production designer on a BFI show I did about 4 or 5 years ago. And how did I know her? Well, I knew her because someone that she was doing her masters at Northern Film School in Leeds with was a mate of mine called Natasha. How did I meet Natasha? I met Natasha because she was on the NFTS course that I was on at National Film and Television School. How did I get on that? Well, I'd been hired to do this. This sounds more grand than what it is, but I was hired to do a feature, but it was like a micro-budget feature, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I literally just started my creative journey after I'd finished that film and realised I knew nothing. How did I get that? Because I knew someone at British Muslim TV in Wakefield. So if you track it back, it's all through people that I've known. And also on the podcast, right, we've had so many guests on there, and one thing I can say that's common amongst all of them is two things, how they got in. One was someone, like a mentor, backed them in the craft that they're known for, or gave them that first initial, you know what, you've got something, to give them that kind of validity to their craft and confidence for them to carry on. A. B, they networked and knew someone and something just happened to align and they got in. For example, one of my mentors is Miguel Sapochnik, who did all the big Game of Thrones episodes. He only got the Game of Thrones gigs because someone dropped out and he just happened to be available, and they stuck him on a plane from America and said, can you go to Ireland? They didn't even give him any scripts, just said, can you do that? And I found that fascinating, and he changed the face of Game of Thrones, what you know now. But that's how it happened. And with the directors that we've had on there, it all works like that because you've got these relationships. At some point, a bit like Tetris, something's going to move and someone's going to drop, and that might be your chance.
Yeah, I think my mind sort of like lit up when you said about that one person, because all it takes is one person just to have a bit of faith in you, and that just can make you feel immortal at the best of times. And like my person for me is my current boss at Screen Manchester called Ellie Metcalf, and she had a unscripted TV background, but I knew her. So when I graduated, I loved my time at uni, but I also professionally felt like I needed to take a restart. So I went to Edge Hill University, started working in Manchester. I signed up to a social enterprise called Sharp Futures, and they helped people get paid entry-level scheme of work. And I just took on anything they did just to help build a rapport with them, but also get just money and things under my belt. And I was literally saying this before. So in 2018, there was a massive Sky job called Curfew. And it was all night shoots, and it was basically like these dressed up action vehicles in a post-apocalyptic world, and they're racing up from London to Scotland to get to the safe haven. But basically, it was just night shoot after night shoot after night shoot. So I worked as a location marshal, which is basically you stand at the end of a road, and if you're going for a take, you make sure that people don't walk into shot, especially when you're filming outside. So it was just doing that and doing that only. And basically, they asked me back because we were filming in a multi-story car park, and it's before you had the lifts, the stairs. They used the stairs, but obviously when you had the lift, they shut the stairs. But they were filming in they reopened one of the corners of the stairs, but it stunk of wee. And basically, because it stunk, the actors refused to do the shoot. So obviously, the time, money, stress, big money. it put the shoot on hold, but no one would sort it out. So I just said, I'll do it. So I literally got some Febreze and we just Febrezing it, and then like, right, smells all right. We go back to work, and the shoot commenced. And it was because of that got me my second gig. But and then they just said, like, you really got something, because it sounds really random and silly, but not many people do that, which surprised me, because I'm just like, don't you want the shoot to get done? And I think, like you say, it's that element of just someone having faith in you, but also really sort of knowing that, because it makes you want to come back. It makes you want to come back, and working with the right people that go like, right, they can realize it in yourself to give you the tools and give you the opportunities to be like, right, you can really do this. And I think that was a really silly example of it, but it was my example that got me into all of this. And it was like no different from going back into the realizing the traits of that. I was green, but really wanted to work hard, pleasant to work with. It was that going like, right, he's really wanted to do this thing that no one else wanted to do. And I think it's about that. And I say this now after learning, it's going the extra mile in proactiveness within healthy boundaries, because people go like, oh, what's your cup of tea moment, or like, what's your sticking out from the rest of people, but also do that within professional remits and about emotional boundaries as well. And I think, like you say, it's that they can see that smidgen of, they have faith in you because you give them that glimpse of faith back. And like you say, I think it's a two-way thing. You show them why you as a person are great just to have around in a team, regardless of what you do, and then they could go, right, you're worth putting our time into.
I think mine was, I wrote a music conference when I was at uni and just got ignored by everyone. And I think there was a point where I was pretty much keeping Royal Mail afloat with the amount of work experience letters I was sending. And I got my first opportunity to do police TV, where I just got involved in it. And we had a point where people were like, oh, maybe we should try and get industry speakers in, because Media City's just opened. And I was literally like, don't know anyone, but I will happily just write to them and be like, hey, do you want to come and do like a session like this? And just talk to people. And ended up chatting to one of the people who works as a script editor, and being like, can you just give me some advice? Where am I going wrong? What are the ways into this? How do I make that first step into the position? And they were like, oh, it's really funny you mentioned that. Like, Shameless is filming, and they're looking for somebody to do work experience in a few weeks. If you want, I'll put your name forwards for it. And like, it kind of just led to that. And it's like, I think a lot of it's just showing up.
Yeah.
As awful as it sounds, like, if you don't take the opportunity, you kind of don't try and push yourself forwards out of that fear that it's not going to happen, it won't go anywhere. Like, you've got to actually put the effort in at times and be like, all right, this is the thing that I'm going to choose and the hill to die on.
That's really, really important when you're coming up. But generally, I did an interview this morning for someone, obviously for the uni. Was interviewing a potential student, and they wanted to do acting. So I was saying to them, look, well, what is it that you're actually doing right now? And they said, well, nothing. They said, I'm at college and I'm doing stuff there. I said, well, are you acting in your mate stuff? I went, no, but when I get to uni, I want to do that. You know the amount of people that talk about this thing about, oh, I want to just keep creating, I want to do that, do that. You know what? Everybody talks it, but hardly anybody actually does it.
Yeah.
If you really want to do it, you have to put the work in. It's so rare that people actually do, because when you're actually creating or whatever it is you want to do, it's in the moment. If your production coordinator is in the moment. If you're doing AD in the moment, you've got to follow in the moment. It's not one of them where you can just like prep for it. Things will go wrong. You've got to problem solve. And if everybody's role is to problem solve that. So, and the best way to get good at that step is by finding any opportunity to do it. I will take anything to direct. Like at uni, they want to do some applicant days where their colleagues are coming, right? So they want to get some workshops and that. I love doing that. Why? Because I'm directing actors and retraining the muscle for the director, so that I'm constantly directing. So that when I get those gigs, I don't have to worry about sort of like getting the cogs like you were saying, going. They're already going, and I can just do what I need to do on the day or on time or on the job or whatever. To work hard, do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Oh God, sorry. Yeah. My version is basically sort of like reading stories, feedbacking people's stuff, because when people go like, "Oh, I'm writing someone up, yeah, that's cool," it's like, if you ever want feedback, you can send it my way, and people, I feel like, oh, it's a bit like a pleasantry, going like, "Oh yeah, cool, of course," whereas actually go like, "Yeah, no, seriously, pinging me over," and I go, "Yeah, but thanks," in my inbox, get it back to them in 2 days, 2 to 5 days, and it's like, "Oh, you've actually read it with actual notes, and in the notes actually clearly tell you read it." And I'm like, "Yeah, why do you think I'd ask? Like, I wouldn't do anything else." And I think it's like you say, it's samples. Going back to when we're talking about expressing passion, one thing that really helps is providing samples and evidence. If you're into cameras, what things are you shooting? What reels have you got? What things can you build upon yourself? If you're into journalism, what stories are you finding? What stories that would you want to pick up on yourself? In terms of, I think even from the production standpoint, can you get yourself in spaces where you're working just to sort of help with the admin sort of thing and the prep? Helping people with the prep and just sort of like, that's a massive thing, especially for production, just to go like, right, can you help me with like anything with like just assisting with like the filing, documentation, to anything sort of the scheduling, anything you want me to sort of coordinate. I think just looking how you can sort of express examples of building up that coordinating aspect is massive for production. Like you say, because if you go, "Oh, I'm into this," it's like when they say X, Y, Z. If your passion's X, make sure Y and Z are your evidence and examples to give it, because it strengthens your argument. And when we talk about confidence as an industry professional, knowing that you've got evidence and samples in your roster is a really great way just for your own self confidence, and not feeling like you're selling yourself to someone, but actually feel like that you're portraying yourself with your shoulders in a good posture and like with your chest out with really good confidence when you're actually approaching people.
I think the other thing is like you're all involved in student TV, and I think like Dan and John will kind of agree with me on this, and Ozzy and Joe, like making student TV reports is hard than making like feature TV professionally. Like it just, you don't have the money, you don't have the resource. You're having to be like a generalist and do several roles and take things on, and like don't underestimate just how much that's taught you and how many skills that gives you, and the problem solving and the way of working with people. Because like in our job, it's really easy to persuade an actor to do a job, because you go, "Here's the bag of gold, see you on Monday." Like persuading somebody to turn up like on a Saturday to get involved in it, like whatever role they're doing, or if you're a journalist, persuading somebody to come on board and let you interview them and talk to them when you're not, a national newspaper, and you can't go, "Oh well, here's the output it'll give you." Like they're all really important skills they're giving you, and they're giving you that confidence and demonstrating that you're not just going to sit there and go, "Okay, well it'll turn out at some point, and somebody will give me this career and give me this opportunity." Like you've gone out and done that for yourselves.
Just quickly, there we go, just making sure I don't blow everyone's ears off. Just to talk about money as well, even though it's great having money, it's great having a budget, it's great having costs attached, but actually as a maker of stuff, working with zero to little budget, especially that, and just making stuff actually makes you smarter. Having limitations and working around your limitations, whatever it is you do, makes you a smarter and better industry professional what you do. Using Waterloo Road as an example, so Waterloo Road, because it's a bit like if you're Casualty Holby, I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, but the predominantly story wise has to happen in the school. Whereas if you're just writing any other script, you can write a house, location, you can take your characters anywhere. Whereas actually they have a rule of, I'm just going to say a rough number, let's say it's 75-25. 75% of the story has to be in the school. Even if it's story that shouldn't happen in the school, it has to be in the school. 25% is your leeway for your locations, but that's not a lot compared to the rest. But the writers, when they come on board, they'll write their first drafts being like, "Oh, let's take all these locations out." And then when we go draft after draft after draft, we then have to be smart to bring in logistics, why we can problem solve and bring the story into the school. And for that, they become better writers as well, because they get taken away the limitation of where they can set their story and actually go, right, we work within our means. And I think whether it's editorially, production wise, working within your means and not feeling like, don't be deterred by the fear factor of like, I know I started on with cash, but just any sort of limitation, working within that realm, it's a real good thing. And just to like shout out to children's TV are the nicest people that make great stuff with the least amount of money, especially in the Northwest. They make some beautiful stuff with sweet nothing.
and just being that problem solver for things like that. It's kind of having that indie film approach no matter what. You'll always have it. Like everyone, no matter, even if they've got 100 million, 200 million pound budget, they're still trying to make a 700 million pound film or project. So it's always got to have that mentality. Yeah. I'm gonna need a second to think about it. But while I do think, I want to also say that you've got to have a lot of patience in this. I wish someone had said that to me from the start. They said you know have patience, because especially if it's like directing and writing, it's going to take a long time. Not just going to take a long time to actually get into the industry. It's actually going to take you a long time to actually get good. And I wasn't prepared at the time to believe that. So every time I did something, I thought, oh, this is amazing, it's amazing, and it wasn't. I think that you have to do more of it. There's no, you know, this idea that I don't know about in music and maybe in sports. I don't know, but maybe that's part of that is whatever you're born with. Definitely in sports and genetics and things, right? But in the creative field, it's about doing. You have to keep doing it. Damien Chazelle talks about like when he won Oscar for was it Whiplash? He won the Oscar for, I think it was. And someone said to him, "Man, you're gifted." And he said, "I'm not gifted at all. I'm no different to anybody else." He goes, "I don't believe in that." And he really got annoyed about it. He said, "I believe in this idea that someone's gifted. It's hard work. You have to keep doing it, keep going back, iterative, over and over and over and over again. Keep failing as fast as you can. That is how you get better. And even if you do a short film or you do whatever you are, I love doing that stuff because you're never above it, because you can use it as a practice each time." So to answer what you're saying, the thing that I like the most is it probably is the people that I know, and I love creating with the people that I know. And I also like the fact that, you can with every project you're going to grow. You're not going to be the same filmmaker at the start of that project as you will be when you go next. So you are an evolved version of yourself going into the next one. So as long as you humble yourself to the craft and you understand that you're never going to be perfect, I just love that evolving journey of getting better and better and better and better and better.
There's no way I'm going to top that answer. But I think just to really sort of piggyback what Oz is saying, it's like, I love stories. I love people. It's a people-orientated industry telling a story, whether it's fictional, non-fictional, whatever the format. It's creative as well. And I think it's all those things realign. It's the community of people that, because I think all three of us, one thing we just want to work with, we want to work on great creative stuff, but we want to work with nice people and talented people and hardworking people. And I think when you know you've got that community, which there is so many of those people up here that share those different in the best ways, but are similar in those best ways that we've just outlined, and just seeing like people that I've started out with and seeing how they've grown, and just going up saying, "Oh, you're doing this, what are you up to now?" And like being, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." Because if you see someone that you work with and they're absolutely brilliant and you really like them and they get a promotion or they go on to do this or they win this, you go, exactly right, because that's the person they are. And I think that's really rewarding. It's not just about your own accolades and what you do, it's seeing how your peers get on as well. And I think you are in the trenches, whether it's a bad time or you're in this together, whether it's a good time, but you don't lose that community element. And I think that's why in the Northwest we're just so passionate about it. Yeah, so I think it's the telling stories and it's the people we tell stories with and we choose to tell stories with. Just quickly off the passion, just a company plug. So obviously, because we've just come to the end of the tax year, but if you keep an eye on Screen Manchester socials, also the website, but on Instagram, X, we'll be sort of rolling out different initiatives which vary on from 6 month all of this paid placements. So for craft roles, but we also offer up boot camps. So really in terms of like early stage opportunities, I know there's traineeships everywhere. But for Screen Manchester and all the other film offices, we should be rolling out those for our next year because that's how our sort of year works. But yeah, get applying. But also, if you want to get in touch just for any advice about when it comes to applying for certain work, yeah, please do.
Yeah, and I do shoot a lot. So like what we were talking about, finding opportunity to shoot. I don't know. One of you were talking about even if you don't have much, it's a big thing for me. Like if you don't have much, how can you still create compelling things to make someone sit forward? I'm very big on that. So I do shoot a lot. So do email me emails on the website or Instagram DM me. But I only go on it once a week because doom scrolling will kill you in this industry. Forget that stuff. Use it for marketing though.
Thanks so much both for doing that.
Hello. Oh, that was really loud, actually. Thanks, guys. Wow, I haven't even said much. Welcome to the next talk, which is Meet Stan, and I'm here with some members of Stan. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys?
Hi, I'm Andrew. I haven't changed in the past hour, I don't think. So I'm sort of script editor, development exec, producer. I work across a range of features and HGTV drama and comedy. Having previously worked for places like Red Productions, who made like It's a Sin, Happy Valley, and have worked across a whole range of different TV shows and features.
Hi guys, I'm Dom. I think you saw me before. But hello to the guys that turn up. So I work at Premier League Productions as a producer. So I work on all different range of stuff, highlights programs, documentaries, live football, that kind of stuff. So if you're a sports fan, come chat to me afterwards. And even if you're not, come chat to me.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm a former video journalist turned news editor at a website called Newsweek. I've worked in journalism and video production for well over 10 years now. And I've been helping out with Stan for a similar length of time, I think, actually.
Amazing. Well, I want to cast you back to the beginning, right? I'm going right from the beginning. So, did you guys always want to get in TV? Was that your aim from a young kid?
Oh, really?
Really? We're going way back. I'm starting at the beginning. I'm seeing your journey.
No, I think I wanted to be a policeman when I was a kid.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow. What made you change your mind?
I can't remember. I went to university. I did a degree in psychology, but I also at uni joined student television, joined the newspaper and the radio station, and decided this is really good fun. This is what I would like to do. So when it came to graduating, and it was like, what's next? I didn't want to keep studying. Psychology involved more studying, whereas I decided, having just won a highly commended NaSTA award for best documentary. Thank you. Please hold your applause. Was like, I'm going to go and make documentaries. I'm going to be an award-winning documentary producer. I'm going to work with Dave Attenborough. It's all going to be great. That did not happen.
Not yet.
No, I mean, I could still. Yeah, I'm still young. So TV seemed that I wanted to. I began meeting some people. I emailed lots and lots, and was a runner for a bit. I'm going to start rambling on. We need to hear your history. Otherwise, I'll give my entire career. When did you decide? How old were you when you decided?
Exactly. We're getting to the important bits now.
Well, actually, it's funny because I've done a few like different events with like school kids and stuff like that, and they always say like, "Oh, when did you like want to become a TV person or whatever?" And I always just say like, well, the two things I was really interested in was like one was TV and the other was sport, and I just thought, oh, that'd be good to do for a job. I remember this teacher being like, "Oh yeah, as if it's like as easy as that," and I was like, pretty much is. Like, that's all you need is like the passion to be like, well, these are the things I'm interested in it. Is there a type of job where you can make money doing that type of thing professionally? Yes, there is. Okay, what are the steps to get there? So kind of always really wanted to do it. But yeah, it was only when I got to uni, like we all did student TV, you realise it's like the coolest thing ever. And I thought, well, let's carry on doing this for a little bit, see how we go. And went from there really. I didn't really want to do anything else, so kind of stuck with it now really.
I was a bit similar. I always wanted to work with writers, was always obsessed with film and TV growing up. I think basically the amount of times my parents yelled at me to like stop watching TV and where would it leave me in life, I was like, I've just got to commit and make this work now because otherwise they will be right. And got to university, didn't know anyone in the industry, didn't really know how to get into it. And I think for me, like I was one of the founding members of HTV, and that was kind of the great gateway into it, of going, just meeting other people and having that excitement and enthusiasm, like, because I get that it can be really scary and miserable and stressful at times, thinking, will I have a career? And you're like, well, at least I've now got a group of friends where we can all be really stressed and miserable and scared together, and it will work out in the end.
That's what you need, is a network of really stressed, equally stressed and miserable people.
So obviously when you go to university and you're doing student TV, it can become a massive passion. But then moving in from student TV to the real TV industry, How did you find that? Because I feel like a lot of these people in this room probably, and me as well, might see it as quite a hard industry to get into sometimes.
Yes, that's why I'm not in it anymore. It was difficult. Yeah, I when I graduated, it was hard to find a job. There was that persistent emailing and phoning and hitting people up for contacts and work experience. So I did some running jobs, a production assistant role, but I wasn't making much money, and I felt like I needed to do that. And so I moved into online video production. A website was looking for a video producer, and I was like, well, I can edit, I can use a camera, all skills I picked up in student TV. And it was a website geared at young people looking for jobs in the media, so it seemed the perfect fit. They agreed I got that job. Did that for a couple of years before moving into a newsroom at 2015. This was in the media world. This was known as the great pivot to video, where BuzzFeed had been doing really good with video journalism and just videos on Facebook and other platforms, and all the legacy titles were desperately trying to catch up because they realized this was a great moneymaker and no one was reading anything anymore. So it's like, we need to turn everything into video. So they needed people. So I got a job at the London Evening Standard. I've got no journalism qualifications or anything like that, and have been in newsrooms since, for the last 10 years since then. And I guess I found, it wasn't TV, but it was still video production. I was still just making stuff, which was really fun. And it was sort of, it kind of played into that interest I had in documentaries. It was all factual stuff, and I really enjoyed being in the news. That there's a certain bustle to a newsroom. A breaking news situation is really stressful, but can be quite exciting to be a part of, and to be creating stuff that helps the audience become better informed about the world around them is a nice feeling. So yeah, I've really enjoyed doing that since. I've quite forgotten what the original question was. I'm so sorry.
It was how did you find it trying to get into the industry, breaking the industry? Because there is a lot of people who said about wanting to do journalism as well in this room. And be journalists.
If I go cast back again to those early days, it was graduating and then just going straight home and spending weeks, I think most of that first summer after graduating, trying to find any kind of work experience. I don't think I picked up a job until September. And that was thanks to actually the producer of a show who was looking for people, he was looking for production assistants. And he put a shout out on Twitter, and I replied, and on my CV I obviously had NaSTA, and he was a former Leeds station manager. So, yeah, the Leeds Hive, and he saw that, and he said to me, I saw that you had NaSTA on there, and you'd won a NaSTA, and you'd been involved in student TV, so I knew that you'd take this sort of stuff seriously, knew your stuff. You can get hands on with a whole number of tasks. So that's what got me in there. I did work experience at the BBC that on a show at the time was called Film 2012. Sorry, not 2020, 2012. Film 2012. And I got that because of the radio show I'd done at uni, which was a film review show, and they were looking for people, runners and stuff. And the production manager said, "Oh, well, you like film, so you seem like you'd be a good fit for this." At the same time, I was offered another running gig on the One show, which I got because a BBC producer who'd been to Exeter came down, did a talk, and became very involved in XTV and very helpful to all the members at the time. And I said to him, I was like, "Oh, look, I'm applying for this work experience thing. Do you know anyone at the One show who could help?" And he said, "Oh, I know the director, so you should email him." And the director said, "Look, I'm not involved in the hiring process of this, but this is what the show is all about. This is what you would be doing. This is the kind of thing that might, impress them." And then I got that work experience gig. So there is, I think, Oz said earlier that there's a lot of like who you know, and that those connections helped. And so I would definitely, really network all the time, and utilize those different connections, and you never know what kind of connections they might then lead to. But then you've also got to know things as well. If you don't know it, you'll soon be found out as a fraud, and it'll be tougher. But that's, yeah, it was a difficult period. But thanks to those connections I'd made through Student TV and through the alumni network of Exeter, that was a real lifesaver, I think, and why I think it's so important that Stan exists and continues to provide that alumni network to NaSTA.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I spoke today and said similar things. It's a lot about who you know, isn't it? Did you have a similar experience, Dom?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna echo Dan and say that it's all thanks to Student TV, because my experience was it was the year before the Olympics in London, and we got an email through to the station email just saying like we're looking for young presenters to do some of the sports pres stuff for the screens. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll send that email out. You got anything else going? Like, just sort of did a bit more digging, saying like, you know, have you got any other roles? And they were like, oh yeah, as it goes, there is some unpaid, you know, just making cups of tea type stuff. Do you want to do that? So I was like, yeah, wicked, we'll do that. And a few of us did that. We did the test events, and then I ended up doing the boxing at the London Olympics. And literally, I was just there, just making cups of tea, getting the food for all the crew and all that sort of stuff. I wasn't actually like doing anything. But then it turns out as well that they were using Final Cut for the editing software, and the editor that they'd hired to do all the packages only knew how to use Avid. And so, like, because we were using Final Cut at uni, I was like, oh, I can show you a few things. And then it ended up me just like for free cutting half the packages for the screens at the boxing, like all the promos and montages and stuff. So, yeah, just I suppose, and none of that would have happened if I didn't do Shooting TV. And that was all just because an email dropped in the inbox. And I didn't just go, all right, I'll forward that on to people who want to be presenters. I actually went, all right, have you got anything else? Like, do a little bit more deep. Once you got that connection, once someone's reached out to you, then you've got your foot in the door, and then you can start wedging it open a little bit and trying to make sort of things happen. And then from that, I managed to get on a graduate scheme at this sports production company. They only ran it for 2 years. I got in the first year, so bit of luck, but also, you know, right place, right time, that sort of thing. And yeah, I remember we went to this. It was like a sort of like a recruitment day. So there are 12 people, and only 3 were going to get a job. So it's very like Darwinian of like the salt course. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was very Hunger Games. Yeah, and so I remember turning up, and I was like, oh, I didn't know how to play it. Like, what should I wear? What should I? And I was like, I'm just going to play it cool. I'm just going to wear like an open neck shirt, smart trousers. Every other person turned up in like full suit, and I was like, I've already messed this up. Like, I might as well just go. And then the first thing, the woman who was running the event was like, what are you all doing wearing suits? It's like 25 degrees outside. Like, take your ties off, guys. And I was like, oh, thank God for that. And it just sort of relaxed me and sort of made me think like, I actually do belong here. Like, you know, I can back myself. And then we got to the last bit of the day was the interview section. And I remember just chatting to them about Student TV stuff, like just stuff that I'd done and experiences that I'd had. And like their eyes just sort of lit up, because they're just like, they could tell that they're talking to someone who's enthusiastic, that has done a bit of stuff. Like, I wasn't a professional at that stage. I needed a lot of work, but they were like, oh, at least here's someone who you can like work with, someone that's speaking the same language as you. They've actually got a bit of enthusiasm. And that's probably what gave me the edge over a lot of the other guys who were in that at that day, was that I'd had those experiences. Like, some of the other guys, perhaps they'd done like they'd gone to like a media college or whatever, and they'd like done like the official courses, which is like, you know, they're really good. But I think Student TV, as you guys all know, is like stuff that you do off your own back. That like puts you into different section of like of recruitment, in terms of like having the initiative, having the sort of the ability to do things off your own back. And as long as you can translate that and bring that across in an interview or in your CV to get to the interview stage, then it'll put you ahead of a lot of the other candidates. And you should have a lot of self-confidence in yourself in that. The fact you're here today, the fact that you're sat listening to this, like, already shows that you've got initiative. Yeah, they should give you a bit of self-confidence. And hopefully after today and hearing from all these different people today, you can take at least one thing away, is just, yeah, like, I've got a lot going for me, and I can shout about that, and that will open up doors for you. There might not be a hard and fast way of getting your foot in the door and getting that first role, but it certainly does help, and it really will give you an edge over a lot of other people who are going for the same sort of roles that you'd be going for.
Just to echo that, I think as well, it's that thing of, it not just helps kind of present you those opportunities, but it gives you something to talk about at interviews. And I know that sounds a little bit bland and glib, but there's a lot of times where people go, oh, there's a perfect answer the interviewer wants to hear. And there usually isn't. They just genuinely want to know in those entry roles that you're passionate and who are you and what you care about, because they can tell you about their career, they can tell you why they're in the industry, they can tell you what matters to them. But the fact that you can go, yeah, well, when I was at uni, I was involved in student TV. These are things that got me out of bed in the morning. I went away and did. That there's a point of conversation, because I always get this fear that people go, oh, there's not enough space in the industry, and there absolutely is enough roles for everyone and enough space, and everyone has access to it. But you've also got to put yourself out there, and that's the scary and hard bit. And you're already doing that by being here, and it's just kind of having the confidence to keep going with it a little bit. And I think for myself, in terms of kind of getting those first entries, when I was at kind of HTV and Fuse TV, they were very newest stations. For Fuse TV, it was the second year they were in running. There wasn't really a structure to what it was, and I think kind of a lot of us went, well, we'll just try and do things. And I don't know if it was madness or intelligence or what it was, just sheer ignorance of I'm just a student. I was like, well, why don't we just invite people from Media City and things, do they want to come down on an evening and chat about what they're doing? And in hindsight, I'm why did I have that confidence and that bravery? But more people want to help than you realise. I think that's the thing. No one's waking up in the morning going, if a fucking student emails me, how dare they? No one's thinking in that mentality. I think for a lot of them, they've all been sat where you are and going, I really wish somebody would just meet with me and give me some advice. And it becomes a cycle of passing it on to the next generation and giving back.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Going for advice and speaking to people, and that's why events like this are so important. So obviously you're all part of Stan. Why did you decide to be part of Stan? There you go. Well, it's Meet Stan, so I was I'll throw in a Stan question.
The amazing salary they pay. No, they don't. Fame and fortune. Well, I think for all the reasons we've sort of touched on in this conversation, that we, I think, have all benefited from being helped by industry figures or alumni from our universities. And there's I can't speak for you guys, but I want to be able to give back, and as you touched on, help people who maybe fill a gap that I didn't get before, and just be of help to the next generation of industry runners or producers or journalists. And if I can't be personally useful, I know, and between the three of us, we've probably got quite a large network of people that that we've worked with and within TV, film, and media industry. So I can probably find someone who can be of use to you, so that's sort of why I when Stan was formed back in 2016, that was one of the reasons I was wanted to get back involved in NaSTA, and this seemed like the most productive, most useful way that I could do that.
Yeah, do you know what I always think when I'm out driving, right, and I see a learner driver, I always give them loads. I always give them loads of space, because I remember being that learner driver, cacking myself, because people are beeping you and flashing lights, and I always remember going whenever I'm a driver, I'm never ever going to do that, because I remember what it's like being there, and I always think that's kind of similar to how I feel about this. So I remember sitting exactly where you were, when I was graduating or before. And I was just I really wish I could just sit in the other seat and help out the other way. And that's why I do it, and give up time to, do these events. And you can email us at any time. We're contactable, and we can organise you meeting other people in the alumni community. We can organise looking at your CV, getting your mentoring, all that sort of stuff. We can help with that. And I always have the feeling of being sat where you are and being just want someone to take a chance on me and give me a bit of help, and that's kind of why I do it. And the other thing is that we had an event last year with Gust in Glasgow, which is their 60th anniversary. And if you think about it that way, that means there's 60 years of student TV in the UK, maybe even more before that, but like 60 years of like official student TV. So you imagine how many like hundreds of thousands, maybe even 1 million people that have done student TV over those 60 years, right? That if we had everyone's email address on a big Excel spreadsheet, that would be the ideal scenario, because we could just do a big round robin email and be like, can you guys help out at this event or whatever? We don't have that, unfortunately. But what we do have is like everyone on the stand committee knows different people in different areas, and we can link people up and help you. So like, I suppose if that was around when I was graduating, I'd like be all over that, because I'd be like, who have you got that knows how to do this, and can I speak to them? So that's what we do, and that's what we can offer you. So that's why we're here today, and hopefully you guys shouldn't feel shy. Just come up and make use of that, basically.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo that, I think we all just want to leave the industry in a better place than when we joined, and like, you know, it's not any more difficult than that, really.
So obviously, as you've touched on before, you all have quite different jobs in a very exciting industry. So do you want to talk me through kind of what your day looks like working in your job?
Well, as you know, nothing is going on in the world. So the newsroom is really quiet every day. And I am not at all stressed or self-medicating with alcohol. No, that's a joke. I'm not. No, oh,
Yeah, there you go.
Non-alcoholic drinks are available. What's my day? I start quite early. I work for a US news organization, so the main point of the London bureau is to get up early and hit the things that the stuff that's been going on overnight, or the stuff that's happening in Europe or Asia, and have a good full, like make sure that New York wakes up knowing what's going on in the world. And so, yeah, very busy mornings, afternoons a little bit quieter. But and each day is different. There are, there's breaking news situations. I was working last Monday, and when you volunteer to work on a bank holiday, what you really want when it's just you and a couple of reporters is a nice quiet day. What you don't want is for the Bishop of Rome to die. But luckily, we'd been prepared for that for some time. You start, and this happens in all newsrooms, I'm sure. As soon as Francis went into hospital in February, we were prepping obituaries and retrospectives, and all the sort of stuff you see get rolled out quite quickly on websites these days. That was all ready to go when news broke from the Vatican that the Pope had died, and then you just jump on it and you get going, and that's I started that day thinking it would be a quiet bank holiday, and actually it turned into a very intense rolling news coverage type situation, and you got to be prepared for that. That's happened a number of times. There's terror attacks that I've covered. President Trump being hospitalized with COVID back in 2020. You cannot. No day is ever the same, and that's actually what I really love about the job. I love not really knowing what might happen, and as I said, it's kind of that's what keeps me going through the day, like that sort of low level stress, or not necessarily knowing what you're going to have to deal with, and then dealing with it. But I guess a regular day, usually I come online, I see what's happening, you check what people are talking about online, if any, has any news broken, and then you put together a news list. You pitch some stories, and other editors get involved. Reporters are pitching ideas they've got, and then it's a mixture of sort of what I would call on the day stories. So the newsier, shorter pieces, quick turns, and then you've got reporters and correspondents working perhaps on longer lead features, which are planned and take a bit more time to put together. And then you commission those, and then you edit them as well. You go through and edit them, and then they get published. So that's it in a nutshell, which I think actually makes it sound quite boring.
I think it sounds exciting.
But the point, I think, you don't know what's going to happen each day, which is the fun part, I think.
I think that's the thing with news, and I know who's journalists, who studies journalism or wants to go into journalism. Amazing, yeah, there's a couple of you. So I think it's nice to see that how it actually works in a day to day. So Dom, what about you? What does your day look like in your role?
Well, if you like, I can take you through what's going to happen tomorrow.
That'd
I'm
be amazing.
Driving down to work tomorrow at Stotley Park. You might have heard about Stotley Park on football coverage. It's where they do all the VAR. Gets a lot of abuse on social media. So yeah, I don't do any of the video ref stuff, but I do. So tomorrow I'm working on the highlights. So we have a 52-minute show. It can be anywhere between 51 minutes 30 and 52. You get a 30-second window. So I will go in, I'll write a running order of all the matches based off of the importance of the game. Liverpool can win the title tomorrow potentially if they don't lose to Tottenham. So that's going to go top of the show. My team, Southampton, are absolute crap, and they're probably going right at the bottom of the show. So yeah, you put the running order based off of the reports of the fixtures, the permutations of the league. We've got 3 parts. I'll divvy them up between, we've got 2 edit teams tomorrow. So we have 1 editor, 1 AP that works on the games. So they'll do some cut downs of the games that already happened, and they'll cut the games that are happening tomorrow. When I say cut, I mean they'll put them into highlights package like what you see on Match of the Day. Graphics, we put like commentary on, all that sort of stuff. I'll go through, make sure no one's like swearing on it or doing Nazi salute celebrations or spitting or anything like that. I like to make sure it's all like, you know, safe for broadcast. I'll make sure that they haven't missed a goal. I'll make sure that there's no like strange cuts in there or anything like that. And once all that's done, we put it all together in a big package, and then we send it down to EVS. Have you guys worked with EVS before? Yeah, a few of you have. So it's like a replay machine. They have them on like all the trucks of live sporting broadcast. They have them in entertainment shows everywhere. So we send it down to an EVS machine as a completed part, and then the clever people in MCR then send it out to the satellites and all the takers around the world. And at that stage, I don't know what happens to it. It could go anywhere. People have sent me videos of people watching it in like Vietnam or like, you know, South America. It goes around the world to, I think there's only 4 countries that don't take Premier League football. So it goes literally everywhere. But once you press send, that's kind of the end of the job, and you just go home and then hope you don't see any emails complaining. No, I've got a 0 tolerance policy on Nazi salutes in the No. In general, no. Like, so if you're showing a crowd shot with like 50 people in it, you're guaranteed to get one person doing some colourful hand gestures. So you got to be like super vigilant. And so I normally just say to people, just if they cut to the crowd, because we can edit whatever we want in, just like cut to the manager or something instead of the crowd, because I don't want to have to spend 5 minutes going, is he doing a 2 fingers there, or is he going 2-0, or what? You know, it's just not worth my time. So like we just generally try and avoid all that sort of stuff. I'm sure there must have been stuff that slipped through the net, but not on purpose. Otherwise, I would. Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, like, everyone's human, and like everyone tries their best. I'm sure there's stuff that slipped through, but yeah, we try our best to make sure it's as clean as possible. So yeah.
Amazing. So Andrew, what about you?
I mean, I was kind of hoping there was going to be a moment where we'd just see a flash of all the things you'd missed this week. I guess for me, like, again, I've never had the same day twice, so it can be anything from being on set. If we're filming something, I might be meeting with writers, meeting with agents, commissioners, kind of leading story workshops, kind of writers' rooms. And I guess I just love how varied it is, and the fact that anyone can genuinely have the idea for the next great story, and kind of hunting down that story takes a ridiculous amount of time. And like that's part of the excitement. You're just looking for that thing you connect with, and you go, I can't quite rationally explain the feeling. You just read it and go, yeah, that's the thing that I'm going to obsess over for the next year or two. Yeah. And it's, you know.
Have any of you had a moment where you're like, wow, I love my job? And if so, what is that moment? Or is it just, you know, every day?
It goes back to your first question about like what, you know, when you were a kid, what did you want to do and stuff. I remember when I was a kid, I just used to watch Sky Sports News all the time. So boring, like, you know, but I used to watch it all the time, and I just thought, what am I? I'm wasting my life. Like, I should be out going to, like, you know, learning how to do something like being a plumber, or, you know, like actually doing something useful. And then I remember I was in Edit Suite once, and we were doing a preview show, so you need to keep across all the latest news and stuff. And my manager came in and shouted at me because I didn't have Sky Sports News on the TV. He's like, "What are you doing? There's no Sky. If something happens, you won't know about it." And I was like, "Yes, I'm doing a job where you get bollocked for not having Sky Sports News on the TV." So I was like, that moment, I just thought, "Yes, this was a good life choice." And yeah.
I've thought of one. I got to interview Andy Serkis once, which was
Very cool.
I don't suppose I sat there and was like, I love my job. I mean, well,
Yeah, but
that was a fun day, in amongst a lot of
yeah.
doom and gloom. There are those moments of levity, and I think Andy Serkis is an amazing actor and director. So it was a great honor to be able to go and do that interview, and I was very pleased that my boss let me go and do that. He knew that I was a fan and knew that I'd probably be the best person to talk to him, and to be able to talk to Andy Serkis about The Lord of the Rings, which is of course the greatest films ever made, and to discuss The Planet of the Apes, which are probably also up there with some of the greatest films ever made. Was a wonderful half an hour. And
How long did you have to prep that interview?
I can't remember, but I probably spent more time prepping than I needed to. Maybe
So fair though.
we probably had a
That's
week or
cool.
two. Maybe had a week before it was due to happen. That was a.
That's a pretty good highlight. To be fair, that's good.
It's not like it's just I was trying to think of all the things. I was like, when the Queen died, no, don't have my job there. When Trump was elected, no, that wasn't. But I mean, but generally, to go back to the point I made earlier, there is when you put something out there that so sometimes like breaking a news story, that's kind of exciting to know that you're the first ones to it, and you've people are like tons and tons of people are reading or watching your work. I once had on a video I narrated a comment. Someone on YouTube said the guy narrating this sounds like Q from James Bond. That was a.
Wow.
We spent some
Okay.
time trying to figure out which Q, because of course there's been
Options.
3 of them, right? So it was
Just
like,
all of
am
them.
am I Benjamin Wishaw or am I John Cleese? It's that was so yeah, that's nice. Those sorts of things.
Yeah, love that. What about you?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's such a privilege because like we all have like our lived experience and the way we experience the world. And I think for me, getting to work with so many creatives and writers and cast members, where you go, I can kind of step beyond those limitations and see the world from a completely different perspective and kind of engage in it a completely different way. It's so rewarding, and you just go, I really wouldn't trade it for anything else.
That's a much better answer than Andy's.
And so I'll ask one more question before I open to a couple of questions. So thinking back to when you were at university, you were doing student TV, and you may have been rooms like this or at NaSTA. What do you wish your younger self knew?
Yeah, we're still young. A younger self. That's,
Yeah, no, but like you know what I mean. Student TV days.
I graduated just yesterday.
It's a hard question. There you go.
I would say just have confidence in yourself. Like there's always this feeling of going, if I put it off, I'll be in a better position to start next week, or I'll be in a better position in a month, or I can think of that really insightful or interesting way of starting an email to somebody that I'm going to email for advice or mentorship, whatever. And honestly, just start. Like it's never going to get easier, or you're never going to feel like you're ready. So just take that opportunity. And like there are a couple of exceptions where it may go horrifically wrong and be life altering in a bad way, but like we're not living in a horror film, right? You can just go for the opportunity. No one's going to hunt you down because of one rogue email. I mean, Tom might, but apart from that,
I think what comes to mind is a piece of advice that I heard from the CEO of O2. Oddly enough, it was for a job. I was filming
cool.
an interview with him, and
You couldn't think of a highlight. There you go.
I was doing an event. It was not dissimilar to this. He was talking to a group of young people about his career, and he said that when he was younger, he wished he'd not been in such a rush and had he talked about stopping to smell the roses, and that there isn't actually like that. You don't try and get in a race with yourself. And I think I kind of had that attitude at uni, where everything felt like you had to achieve it as soon as possible, and do get into TV and become and yeah, just sort of racing towards that goal and not appreciating actually that it doesn't matter, that it might take some time, and that things do work out. Save these catastrophic changes or people hunting you down, but yeah. So yeah, I think looking back, I would, when I was, on the verge of graduating, there was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And if I don't, I don't get a job immediately after graduating, that's the end of my life. And what am I going to? I mean, already my dad was livid that I was trying to get into the television industry and not do anything with the degree I just spent 3 years and about £9,000 on. So there was a lot of pressure, and it's actually you can take that pressure off yourself. I think it's not as horrible as it seems, and there is something out there. Sorry, that sounds a bit cliche, but
no, but I think that's all really useful, because I bet there's a lot of people in this room that maybe graduating or starting like their early steps in their career, and it is a thing of like, actually we've got so much time, and I feel like when you come to events like this, sometimes it can, hearing talks and things like this, that you're like, oh, like I need to get that, like you're so excited about it, but actually like it takes time, and that's okay.
Yeah, and don't compare yourself to your contemporaries. Don't get caught up in wondering what that other person's doing and how well they seem to be having huge success, and why am I not having that same success? It's a waste of time and energy.
Well, also, I think it might have been you, Dom, that said earlier, like about the fact that actually we're all connected. If you know that person who's done really well, like that's a connection that you've got, and you never know where you're going to end up, and you might meet again, and like they remember you, and if you support them, then they can support you too. I think it's actually, as you said before, like it's such a small industry, and it's nice that we all get to meet each other as well in events like this. Tom, what's your words of wisdom to your younger self?
I think the most important thing is like you need to do something that like makes you happy. Like when you go home at night, like you need to be happy with what you're doing. Like find a role, find something you do that you really enjoy, because like student TV is probably like the most fun you'll have in your life. Like I'm not going to say it's downhill from there, because the world of work is great as well. Like don't get me wrong about that, but you need to do something. You need to find something that's going to make you happy, because like you got a long life ahead of you working. You probably got like 50 years or something of like working, and like it's a long time. Yeah, no, you're going to be working till you're like 90, probably, you guys. So,
yay!
No, you need to find something that, and it might not be your first job, it might not be your third job, it might be your 10th job, but that's what your mission in life is, to do something where you get enough money to, pay for all the things you need, but you're happy at the end of the day. That really, I know it sounds a bit glib, but that, to be honest, that's all I care about these days. I don't really care about interviewing a famous person or doing like a no. Obviously Andy Serkis. No, what I mean is, so like we no, I more mean from so we get like anyone who's into football, like we get all the top stars of football in like work, and the first time you do it, it's really cool, but then like the 25th time you do it, it's just a bloke, and more often than not, it's like someone who doesn't want to be there. So like the shine of it wears off a little bit. So like all the things you think when you're a student, like, oh, I'd love to interview this person or do this or do that or whatever it is. Like sometimes like it's actually just the little things that like the whatever the things that are that make you smile and make you happy about work and stuff. You can find something like that, you're onto a winner, and everything else doesn't really like factor into it. It's just finding a job that makes you smile. That's what I would say to myself.
Oh, I love that. Has anyone got any questions that they want to ask? Anyone? No, amazing. I'm just like great at questions. Do you know what I mean? Amazing. Well, is there anything that you guys feel like you want to add? Or
We got a lot of pens.
got a lot of pens.
Does anyone want a pen? No. So we've got a lot of different initiatives. I think you guys are all pretty aware of what Stan is and what we do now. But if you're not, there's QR codes out there, and it's got our link tree on it. So it's got all the different initiatives and different things that you can use Stan for. So we're kind of, like I said before, we're here to help you. and you can feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're all just like you. We're just older, so yeah, and we can help you out with specific stuff like your CV, with mentoring, which people have already used. People used it at conference, and it was really helpful. So if you want to send us a CV to look at, if you want advice, if there's anything at all, please feel free to get in touch with us. Yeah, and just I suppose as well, when you do graduate, if you want to get involved and help out and give something back when you're slightly older and you've got a role in the industry, then Stan is always going to be around. So it's kind of like it's like the umbilical cord that links you to student TV for the rest of your life. You never get away from us. So yeah, we're here, and please be aware of what we do, and spread the word to make sure everyone that you work with knows about us as well.
Ooh.
From student TV.
And it was more than 10 years ago. The fire, I was going to say. The fire at NaSTA 2012. Someone set light to a tree.
Gosh.
Well, they didn't mean to. There was a barbecue the night before, and I think some ashes got under the. Anyway, it just went up like a, So that was a fun. In those days, we also used to do a challenge during the day called the Golden Bodge, and it involved taking a camera out. You divided up into teams, and you took a camera and one tape, and you had to film something. There were themes, I believe, every year, like that you were given like a title or a genre. And then you were given this one tape and a camera, and you went out and you had to make it. And the amount of videos that year that all included somehow shoehorning in this flaming tree. So that sticks in my mind. But yes, not a mad moment, but yeah, helping XTV secure NaSTA 40, and then that being, dare I say, the best NaSTA ever. Oh yeah, sorry, I forget who I'm talking to. Sorry. Top three. But no, I was a incredibly serious and sensible student, so no mad moments come to mind.
I honestly can't think of like one moment. My mind's gone completely blank. But yeah, just I suppose going to NaSTAs and meeting other stations and stuff. That was my favourite thing at uni. Meeting people from different places. It was good.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a similar vein, just like meeting all the other stations and realising you're part of a much bigger community than you initially recognise.
Yeah. We just keep the music going in the background, just like do the whole talk like this.
Feels like we're on a smooth jazz radio
Yeah.
show.
I'm going to level with you guys. When I asked to do this talk, I made a load of slides because I thought it was like a TED talk. I didn't realize it was just that you chat for an hour.
The surprise, I'm back.
So I have a load of slides.
But we still want to use the slides.
Yeah.
And you've got a concept you want to talk about, the sandpit thing.
Yeah. So
following on from Dom's umbilical cord analogy earlier,
I think Dom's is better. Yeah.
We now move to sandpits.
So yeah,
please explain sandpits to us, Joe.
I would say hello, I'm Joe, and introduce myself, but pretty much everyone in this room already knows who I am, so there's not really a lot of point. The heckles begin. My co-host, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, a lot of you, if you've heard me give a talk somewhere or whatever, might have heard me talk about that I always thought of uni. That's not a level chair, so I'm going to put it on my lap instead. I always talk to the uni a little bit about being like a sandpit that you see at a park. Stay with me, everyone. Don't worry. In that, I think university, especially student television, is very much like this kind of environment where you can build things up, create things, knock them down, and it doesn't actually affect anything outside of the sandpit, unless you're that one kid who liked to chuck the sand out of the sandpit. And it's kind of this sense of that you can create things and redevelop them and that sort of stuff. And it's not going to kind of go anywhere. It's not going to kind of mess up your life, that sort of thing, really. So that's kind of the concept that I've lived by over the past few years.
I feel like I should have brought a bucket and spade.
Yeah, probably.
Um,
We should have done a whole like activity.
How's the sandpit concept helped you in
I think it's
reality?
Yeah, it's helped a lot because it's like this kind of sense of, I think we've heard it a lot today, so I'm not going to kind of like repeat things that have already been said, but this idea of like you don't need to tie yourself down to one idea, one job, one concept, one broadcaster, that sort of stuff. Feel free to move around, mingle, that sort of thing. Like try different jobs, try things out, because you're not going to know. Same with student television, try out different roles. We always advertise lots of different roles and that sort of stuff. And I try and say to people, like, I hate when people go for the same roles every week. It's like, try something different, because try building something else. You might, do camera, realize you really hate operating camera, but then that sort of thing,
So actually, just I know you've said everyone in this room probably knows who you are, but for the twos of people watching the live stream, can you explain like what you do? And
So I'm Joe Lander. I'm a freelance gallery/studio operator for various news companies and broadcasters and sports broadcasters, that sort of stuff. I currently run Keys TV, and I also helped found Shock TV, which we're currently live on at the moment. Hello. And yeah.
So your first job, did the sandpit help you get that? Am I skipping ahead?
Yeah, no, it's fine. The one I was going to say, the worst thing that anyone can ever say when you ask something is no. That's all I was going to say on that point. But yeah, no, my first job, it's kind of I worked sort of for a very small company. No, it's the world's largest range of LED screen delivery, ADI. You would have seen many of their screens at one event or another, but not know who they are. They're one of those infamous companies that hides in the shadows, but pretty much any major stadium around the world they provide the screen for, and mix the feed for from Preston, actually, here in the Northwest. So there we go. But yeah. So I worked for them as a graphics operator. I've got some pictures. There's this isn't me. That's me in the corner there, working on the graphics machine. So this was the screen for Everton. So Everton is actually the largest So they provide for a lot of sort of clubs, but they provide their full service package to Everton. So they mix, I think, 2 different screens live in the stadium, and then they have their sort of fan zone that they work on and everything like that. So we were sort of operating loads of sub mixes and things from the biggest gallery that they've got, and actually they split a lot of the mixes in Everton over 2 galleries. So a lot of the time I was working between 2 different ones, operating the graphics for the sort of in-bowl screen and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of that sense of like building up the skills in an area that I hadn't really got a lot of experience in, because you'll know sort of in the Keys gallery and stuff like that, we don't do a lot of graphic work. So it was like nice to sort of learn that sort of stuff.
And this was a freelance gig?
Yeah, so pretty much all of these that I mentioned are freelance gigs. I think the purpose of my talk is to talk mainly about freelancing. So
yes.
I will try.
So I was wondering, how did you get this role?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to remember the other day. I remember I did a lot of work in college doing some stuff with cameras, and I think ADI were advertising for some sort of a gallery operator roles, and I kind of went for it, and I was very fortunate enough to get it. I think they were looking for some especially very entry level positions, so my main bit of advice on that would be sort of in getting that first job, getting that first freelance thing, is like, don't be afraid. Like, don't feel like, oh, I don't have a lot of experience or whatever. Use your experience in student TV. We've heard it, loads of times today, and I'm just going to end up repeating a lot of the advice that people are given. But it is good advice in that use those experiences to get that entry level position, because you never know where it will lead. That job actually at ADI, I ended up then operating the screen for the World Gymnastics Championships in Liverpool, and so the AO, the M&S Bank Arena. So here's me operating those cameras. And actually, Dom asked me to mention in this talk about any work that in student television or skills that I learned that kind of meant that sort of felt that the had that progressed into the professional life. You'll notice here there's something called a bongo cam. Basically, the contract that ADI had with M&S Bank was that they were going to have a remote camera that was going to go through the audience, and they were sponsored by some like drinks corporation or something. They provided orange juice, and last minute they realised they hadn't fulfilled a lot of the contract details with that, and they needed to basically have this camera that goes along and people pretend to play the bongos on a load of oranges. And they didn't know how they were going to basically sort that out. And I said, what if we keyed a sort of blue screen with some like a bongo frame, sort of like you would see on like a, one of those old like tablets or whatever that kids used. So we did that.
Joe Lander, inventor of the bongo cam.
The bongo cam, yeah. It was great. So and we went around the stadiums and people loved it. So we managed to fulfill that contract, which was good. So this is just some more photos from that work that I did. There's the bongo cam again. So and that was used on screens and stuff. And we basically filled that stadium every night, and a lot of people saw my work. And it went on the fan zone and the Facebook stream as well, which had 25,000 people watching it, which was quite scary. No one actually told me that it was going on the Facebook stream until day 3 of 12. So I didn't realize for 3 days that I'd been mixing a stream to loads of people, and I hadn't been putting in a lot of effort with it, I won't lie. So it was actually a fun fact, a running joke on that sort of job. That on the first day, the show caller, they'll turn around and they kind of check that everyone's here and that they've done everything. The show caller is like the equivalent of like a PA type thing in broadcast, but for events. And I made a joke about how I hadn't seen sunlight for 3 days because we'd start work really early in the morning, we'd finish quite late at night, and we were in an arena, so obviously you wouldn't see any sunlight. And so he'd be running through this checklist, and on about day 10 he turned around and went, "Has Joe seen sunlight yet?" And everyone over comms goes, "No." So that was kind of fun. That's that job. That's I think that's everything for that one. So yeah.
What came next?
Well, next I then
Look at that. It's
like
I'm a professional. Yeah.
Next, it was a job here in Salford. Actually, I worked for BBC Sport, freelancing for them in their galleries, and I kind of
Sorry to interrupt. Can I get a sense of the timeline here? What is this? This is adjacent to your university studies?
Yeah. So I started at ADI in my mid first year, and then I did that for a year. So I did all the ADI stuff. I also did the London Marathon and the Great North Run as well, which was quite fun. So we did the events for the screens for them. And then this was going into my second year at uni at the start of that. So about the January of first year, January second year, something like that. But yeah, I basically wanted to work. I always knew I wanted to work at a gallery when I first started work at Keys, and I was like, oh my God, I love galleries. Galleries are the best place to be in terms of like live production, because anyone who's ever worked in a gallery will know gallery chat is the best. Studio floor chat, not so much, because you're not allowed to chat. So yeah, anyone who's ever worked with Cameron Gordon as well will know that gallery chat is the best. So yeah, I worked in BBC Sport for a little while as like a freelance journalism researcher. That wasn't even a job the weird thing about freelancing is sometimes you don't realize you're freelancing, if it makes sense. Like, so this job, as part of my degree, I had to do 5 days work experience somewhere. And I managed to get in touch with some people from BBC Sport who got me in. But there was a miscommunication, and they thought I was there to be a freelancer. So I started getting paid for some stuff that I just thought I was there to do work experience, which was a bit bizarre.
And you paid them back, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it was nice. It was. I did that for a few months, and it was a good experience. What do you mean? What was with my TV license?
To be paying you, were they?
Oh, what
you're saying?
No. Well, they weren't, but they paid me, and
you kept the money.
I kept the money. Yeah, it was. Didn't mind. So. Yeah, I don't know. That was a bit of a weird experience. That was my first BBC ID. There we are. Oh yeah, that's yeah. but yeah, and then I basically, what I'd do for that job was you'd start and stop the streams for BBC Sports like web pages, which I didn't realise was a job. But there are a lot of weird jobs at the BBC that you sit and go, I don't realise that was a job, but that was quite fun. Yeah.
Well, our taxpayers' money well spent on your fraudulent freelancing.
Well, I didn't realise that.
I jest, of course. So this was all happening in a simultaneously with your time at Keys.
Yeah, Keys and Fuse.
And Fuse. Did you find what did you find was sort of most useful? I guess. What skills did you take between the two? Like, were you able to bring stuff from your professional world to student TV and help, like, I don't know, lift or enhance your student TV station anyway? And
I think it was like kind of that realization that like student television, you kind of sit there and you make a load of rules up and you say, oh, this is the terminology for this and this is the terminology for that. And you realize that when you go to different places and different broadcasters, everyone calls every role and every sort of thing something different. And so it's nice to kind of bring that back to this place and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do for this and that sort of stuff. And you learn a lot of like the ways of streamlining things and going like, okay, well, we don't actually need to do all that. We can just do this instead and that sort of stuff. And we did a lot of sort of everyone will know I'm a big fan of an OB, and I think a lot of the OBs that we did here at Shock TV and Keys, we did so after I started to work on these sort of big events, and I started to go, okay, well, this is how this works on an event or whatever, and yeah, that was the sort of stuff that I brought along.
So tell us about this crazy phone call.
Well, I got a weird phone call a couple Christmases ago. I'd applied for the Sky News work experience, which if anyone gets on, highly recommend. It was really good. But I didn't actually do the traditional one. I got a phone call which was from Louise Hastings, the managing director of Sky News, and she said,
not pictured.
No, I'm not Louise Hastings. I should point out. But she turned around and all the stuff I'd put in the application, I'd put about wanting to be a director and wanting to kind of work in the gallery and things like that. And she said, we don't actually have a work experience program for that. Can you be our guinea pig? Can you come down to London for 2 weeks, do a work experience program that doesn't exist, and then send us a load of feedback on it, that sort of thing. Which was great because a lot of people for 2 weeks didn't quite know why I was there. But it was good because my 2 weeks kind of consisted of we'd split the days. So half the day I'd either be shadowing the directors in the gallery because they said, what job do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a director. So they made sure I spent at least half of my time with the director. And then the other half of the day I'd be doing a different role. So that photo earlier was from a floor managed SJ's show. And then I also worked a lot with the Daily Climate show, which we'll come on to in a sec. But and then, did a bunch of roles in sound, worked in MCR upstairs. Because if anyone gets a chance to go to Sky Campus, it is mental. They have like a huge campus that they basically built where everything Sky comes out of. And it's like quite funny because all the other broadcasters, they're kind of split around the country, but Sky is very much, no, we're going to be in this one place. And I got shown round by Ben, who's a lovely chap. He's the head of studios at Sky News, and he said that they built a new building. They spent £2 billion, and it's gone their think centre. He said, and it's like where they basically just have loads of beanbags in a room and they think about things, which is nice. There you go. There's me floor managing SJ's show. So. And then I've got a video here, if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, because I thought, we've had a day of talks. This is me directing the Daily Climate show, which basically like the whole 2 weeks led up to, I learned about the Daily Climate show, how to direct it, that sort of stuff. It's pre-recorded every day, so it's not actually live. And this was, again, a pre-recorded version. But I don't know if anyone wants to watch it. They can do.
No, let's play it.
Let's have a
How
look.
long is it?
It's 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, company. Thanks very much for doing this.
No, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, we've rehearsed it so that you do a walk straight back, talk to the screen for a bit when it does the screen stuff, and then you walk over to the home position sort of a bit later on when we're out of vision.
You just tell me when to go and I'll go.
No worries, we'll go in 5, 4,
So,
3, 2.
I'll try and talk while I'm doing it.
Cue Kimberly.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Climate Show. Coming up today.
Wipe. And cue.
So Sky is automated. Everything on Sky runs off one system. You'll hear a count in the background. That's the automated PA. They don't pay PAs anymore.
Cue.
Hundreds of academics urged the
And
Prime Minister
everything is
to end
basically, you
approval
hit a space
for
bar
new
to
oil
cut
and
between
gas
things because you
projects.
pre-program everything before the show.
Wipe. And cue.
10 seconds.
So all I'm doing is basically announcing what I've pre-programmed
Grow
before.
meat using the cells of an extinct mammoth.
Stab. Coming into vision on 4.
2, 1.
Go move on 4. Wipe. Cue.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Climate Show, where we track the changes to our world and investigate some of the potential solutions to the climate crisis.
You'll also notice I got really nervous about halfway through and I start doing this with my neck because I do that when I get really nervous.
Strikingly unprepared for the effects of climate change, with ministers presiding over a lost decade
There
of
you go.
preparations. In a new report, the Climate Change Committee has said last summer's 40-degree heat wave and drought show just how vulnerable the UK is to a hotter climate without better planning. Now, earlier I spoke to the
Screen.
chief executive of that
VT
committee,
next.
Chris Stark.
Roll VT.
So obviously, like a lot of my journey,
1 minute 13 on VT.
we're talking about sort of building up these things and building up your skills. And while this VT's playing, I'll talk to you a little bit about this. I'm sat watching it now, critiquing my own directing because I've done a lot of directing news after this, and I've gone, well, you know, you need to have said this or I didn't say that. Luckily, Kimberly's really experienced and she knows what we're doing anyway, and we've run through the show about 3-4 times because I've never directed in this gallery before. But yeah, you can kind of see on the left is the software that programs the virtual screen, because obviously Kimberly's not in the studio that exists. It's a virtual studio. The running order's on the right here, and we've programmed all of these. 30 seconds, lovely. And then you can see the running order, the kind of physical system running order is right in front of me.
It's sitting away in a dusty cupboard somewhere. It's a small bit of
20
government
seconds.
that has been tasked with bringing that together. And it just does not have the political focus
15.
that it really should have. So one of the reasons for publishing our report today
There's the
is to
PA.
early,
Back
in
into
the next
vision in
couple of
10,
years. We did it
9,
earlier this year.
8,
Try and inform the
7,
next programme
6,
for this government, which is
5,
due in the summer.
4, 3.
I wasn't listening to the PA
Envision,
and she
cue.
counted too early.
Let's have a look at some of the day's other stories now. And the European Court of Human Rights is to consider 2 cases
Right.
of European governments
Out of vision.
accused of failing to protect the environment. In Switzerland, more than
Again, it's all about just learning skills and building things up. You know, I didn't say wipe before we wiped. I said it after instead. But it's I'm watching it back going, and this is my big bit of advice: is watch everything you direct or you do, even if you worked as a camera operator or you did that. Watch it back because you'll learn a lot. I know Alfie at the back watches every show that he does every week because you learn from it, you know. And having these director comms as well was really helpful.
Portsmouth then analysed the samples using new technology that allows them to get a more accurate picture of pollution levels.
Wipe.
To demonstrate the potential of lab-grown meat, an Australian company has created a meat wall using the genetic code of a woolly mammoth. The project aims to show the potential of creating meat products without
Come
the
back into
slaughter
vision
of
on 4
animals.
next.
The company called Vow hopes the technology could help vastly reduce the huge environmental impact of meat production.
In vision. Cue.
Poole Harbour was the
VT
subject
next.
of a damaging oil
We've got this
spill.
VT, but don't worry, I do skip through the VT in the recorded bit just because I wanted to show the end as well.
Scientific interest. Our data and forensics unit has been looking into what happened, and Adam Parker now reports.
VT. Out of vision. So it's about 2 minutes on this
Sweet.
VT.
So when I screen recorded this, luckily I did skip through the VT because I didn't want you two guys to have to sit and watch a 3-minute VT that's about 3.5 years old. Or two years old. I don't actually know I never actually watched the VT. I don't remember what it was that it was about. Apparently geese. Yeah, apparently geese.
Exactly how it really happened. But the government says a full investigation
5,
will take
4,
place.
3,
Adam Parker.
2,
2,
1. Back in vision.
Now, before we go, a reminder that we want your climate questions. Anything that's ever
White.
mystified you about the environment
Vision.
or whatever you want to get to the bottom of.
There's a little graphic animate button on the bottom that I'm about to press, so not pressing spacebar this time. and mix.
And you can watch Tom's show
I
on
got a
Saturday
classic and
Sunday,
mix in there as well.
3
So
p.m. here.
that was specifically for someone back here that asked me to do it.
That's all from us today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
And Stan. And out. Thanks very much, everyone.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. There we go. So I just thought I'd share that with you because I had it. So yeah, that was my big thing as well. Is obviously we are a very online focused society at the moment, and very big on pushing, what goes on behind the scenes, that sort of stuff. You might notice there's a guy called Dom Cam, something like that. He does a lot on Instagram with behind the scenes of what camera operating for things like Sky News. So can recommend checking that out, and can recommend if you are freelancing, capture your journey. Obviously within reason, don't spend the whole job filming stuff, and do ask for permission before you do. So that stuff was all cleared with Sky News before I posted it out. But yeah.
Sorry, before you go,
no, it's fine.
So this was that work experience guinea pig process. Do they offer a work experience?
I don't know if they've implemented it. I have emailed them a couple of times and said, "Oh, I'm now doing this, I'm now doing that." And we keep up to date and that sort of stuff. We chat still, so
cool.
But hopefully they will offer something at some point. And if people are interested in that sort of stuff, I can put you in contact with the people who I organise it with, and hopefully they'll do another one.
Yeah, it looks like an invaluable piece of experience.
It was really good. Yeah. Some other weird stuff that I've done, because you do some weird stuff freelancing, and that's the weird thing is you kind of. I have this policy that if I'm asked to do something, I always say yes. I got that on camera now. That's probably not good to say, but I got offered to do a Doc 10 live, which was a charity stream that we did in Doc 10, obviously, with a bunch of musicians who were technicians at Doc 10, and they did that for charity. Countdown as well, which is filmed in Doc 10. I got the chance to do that for a couple of days, which was nice. All I did was just I was like a runner, just working behind the scenes, that sort of stuff. But I was very big on I want to see the gallery where this sorts of stuff happens, and I want to be in a gallery, and I want that module that I had to do for professional practice, my big aim was I want to sit in as many galleries as possible, and it's like a running joke that I want to sit behind as many news desks as possible as well around the country, which kind of leads me on to, I did some stuff with Vinco. I'm going to skip through Vinco because it wasn't a great time, but we had to work in a container, which you saw there, a shipping container for a summer, and then I did take a little bit of a break from my professional career and focused on student television a bit. So that's a clip from many of you may know, we recreated Coconut Mall in real life with the Salford Precinct. So that's why I asked if you had any weird things that you'd done in student television.
Not at this league. I don't
but yeah, and I kind of took a bit of a break as well to focus on Shock TV as well, getting that up and running and getting it sort of ready. But then I did, that's what I mean. It's about you come in, you come out. The great thing about freelancing is you have complete control over your life and what you do when you want to do it. And at that time, I wanted to focus on my studies, and then. This is the beginning of my third year. I then went back to BBC Sport and worked behind the scenes. So kept those contacts and then sort of worked behind the scenes on the ingest desk. And again, like I say, part of my challenge to sit behind as many news desks as possible. I sat behind the BBC Sport News one and the BBC Breakfast. I worked a bit on sort of technically breakfast as well on the ingest for them as well. So that was my view from my desk.
So how many have you ticked off now?
Granada, Sky News, BBC News, and ITV Calendar. So only 4. But if anyone knows of any news desks, I could sit behind.
News desks?
That'd be great.
What was the most comfortable sofa?
Most comfortable sofa at Sport by any means. I didn't get the chance to sit on the breakfast one, so I can't comment on that one. Because my shift would always start about half an hour before breakfast finishes, and they need to use the same studio for Sport very quickly afterwards. So you'll be surprised how quickly that red sofa disappears and the whole thing turns around. So I never got the chance to sit on it, but I did stand near it. But I did, if that counts. I did take a break from that after 3 months, though, because it got a bit much. I was doing my final project, and I was kind of working on a project, this one, which some of you may have been to.
What's this?
NaSTA 2024. But yeah, we hosted NaSTA, and I was busy sort of doing that as well, so I stopped doing professional stuff so I could focus on doing this. Which I know that logo brings many people bad memories. Am I what? Sorry.
Is that you at the back by the lectern? I can't tell.
That's Alex Buckmaster there. Yeah, that's you there. And that's Emma, I think. And I think that might be me. Yeah, I think that's me. So yeah, there we are. The gang's all together. Oh. But yeah, no, I did stop from my professional career for a little bit, and then over the summer after that, so last summer, I started working for Granada. At ITV Granada is what I currently do now, whilst also doing the Keys stuff. So a lot of my days, sometimes I'll do the late shift, so I'll do my sort of day 9 to 5 down at Keys, and then I'll go upstairs and work at Granada upstairs. So my fiance is not a big fan of me where every time I have to do the freelance days, because she just doesn't see me at all. But that's the cool thing about freelancing, is you do weird stuff outside of normal times, and you can kind of still do your normal job at the same time if you want to. And that's sort of my big advice, is don't, because you've got a 9 to 5, don't overdo yourself. That's the big thing. But also at the same time, you can
Can I ask,
things.
Like, how do you find a work-life balance?
Very difficult. It's something I'm still dealing with at the moment. Slowly calming down now that I've stopped doing uni, because trying to do uni and work and do all this cool stuff at the same time was really difficult. But you know, it's the balance has gotten a bit better now, and it's also kind of a case of setting yourself sort of boundaries and goals, and an understanding of, you know, I'm only going to work this much, or I'm only going to do this, and you know, a clear sort of cut-off point, because it's like at the end of the day, you've still got to look after yourself. You've got to spend time for yourself and spend time with people you love and that sort of stuff, and Courtney. So, and then this is the sound desk for Granada as well. So when you do the late shift, you work on the sound as well as the floor. So so you do the floor for the 6 o'clock program, and then the sound for the 10. So yeah, I think that's about it. Going back to the sandpit, what have I built? I built sort of a lot of skills and things. You dabbled in a lot of different areas, and it's like it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning. It's like setting yourself weird goals. So like my goal, like I say, sit behind as many news desks as possible, sit in as many galleries as I can, you know, experience what do the directors say in different shows, and they all direct differently. The Countdown director directs massively different to how the Sky News directors would direct, but it's nice to hear how different people do things, because it's like it's all kind of, it's like driving. People drive differently, don't they? You hold the steering wheel different. At the end of the day, you're still doing the same thing, but ultimately it's how you do it that's different, and it's about finding your style. And it's nice to kind of hear other people do things like that. What should I build next is what I said next, but that's really cringy. So I'm gonna ask Alfie just to put the slate back up, and that's a bit less cringy. But yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. You've been really busy, is what I've taken away from that in a short amount of time. Like, very proactive.
I wouldn't advise people being so proactive, because it has taken a bit of a toll in terms of, like, I kind of look back at uni and go, I don't know how much I spent being a student or spent doing things, like studenty things. So there is kind of that sort of element to it as well. You kind of go, you know, it's uni is what people make of it, I think, really. So
absolutely. Are there any questions from the audience for Joe?
Well, you all know me, so. I think an Excel spreadsheet is quite good. Keeping people sort of in a sheet. It feels weird to say. It's like I'm putting them all in the cells, but yeah, it's nice to kind of categorize.
You say it like that, yes.
But it's nice to sort of just keep in touch with people. You know, I'm going for a coffee chat with someone on Wednesday from Doc 10, who I met doing the Doc 10 stuff. And we're just going to chat. She actually, ironically, is doing the job of my old boss. So she moved from Doc 10 to do that now. So, I keep up with Dom as well. It's nice to see Dom and chat to him. I didn't include in the slide, but I did go and visit IMG as well. So like Alex, I got the Dom tour. So can recommend if anyone wants to go down to Step
How
Up
often
Art.
are you offering this tour, Dom? I don't think I've done the Dom tour. Right. Okay.
But it is fun. A good day. So, and you get pictures with mugs. So I've got lots of pictures with IMG mugs.
Nice way to describe Dom. So I'll see myself out.
Yeah. Any other questions at all? Yes. Well, it just my fiance works with children, and we talk about sort of lots of stuff that happens. And when I first started uni, she was talking about a story in a sandbox, and I thought that's really creative on how, like, kind of this idea that these children are building, almost have like this miniature world that they're building, and it's like the idea of like you're building this skill set and these sort of contacts and everything like that, and you kind of everything you're doing in student television. It's like kind of this creative world where you've got this freedom to just do whatever you want with these cameras within reason. So it's like kind of, my advice is just enjoy the time and make them. If you've got a crazy idea, do it. So that's sort of more thing. It was something that we thought of, and then literally only a week later we did it, because we just, I kind of have this weird filter in my head where I just like I don't have this weird thing of, I hope no one says no. I just ask. And 9 times out of 10, if you ask, a lot of the times that people are happy to accommodate. So we just rung Salford Precinct and said, can we do this next week? And they said yes. So it's just kind of one of those things where, you don't ask, you don't get, is something that I live by. And like I said at one of the first slides, the worst thing that anyone can ever say is no. So you may as well ask. Yeah. So yeah, I think it was a mix of I think I'm always my own worst critic, so I sit there and think that I only got it because they were really desperate for people. I'd like to think that I got it because I showed some merit in terms of the interview process and some form of knowledge. I don't know whether it was just a mix of, in college I'd used a lot of camera stuff, created a lot of short films, and had a lot of a good portfolio in terms of like the work that I'd done, or whether it was just the right place at the right time. I don't know, but I think in terms of my advice to anyone who's like that, who feels they don't have enough experiences, don't doubt yourself. They know, if you turn around to them and say, I'm in university, they're not expecting you to have 20 years of experience or something behind you. If they're offering up something like a graphics operator position in a gallery, they're 9 times out of 10 more likely to want to take someone who's in, say, university. ADI is really good, especially at bringing in people who are in university. They have really strong connections with UCLan, which is University of Central Lancashire in Preston. It's round the corner from their office. And so they're very big. Find these sort of I wouldn't even say ADI is a small company, because like I say, they're doing all of this stuff, all these big events. But find these sort of niche companies that are going to be sort of happy to and do have really strong connections with universities, and don't feel like, they work with UCLan, so they're more likely to take someone from UCLan than the University of Salford. I'd say find these companies that go to these careers events, that sort of stuff, because they're more likely to have this sort of expectation of, okay, we're going to take in X number of students a year, that sort of thing, because they offer up place. I mean, my career started because of ADI. I got to do all of those opportunities in this slideshow because of my work with ADI and that sort of stuff. So I'd say, that's the advice I'd give, is don't doubt yourself and don't feel like you're not good enough for these positions, or I won't bother applying, because if you don't apply, you're not going to get the job. If you do apply, you just might. And that's probably
a really nice
to end on.
It's a nice note to end on. Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you everyone for coming today.
Thank you to Emma as well for organising today. Great job.
Enjoy your evenings. Goodbye.